There's this myth out there that black men can't handle being spoken to, and told what to do by black women. Black men come from our bodies.
Yeah.
So they're used to having these conversations with women.
The matriarchy is strong with the black
community. It is
community.
very strong.
Yeah.
One of the funniest things to me is how much patriarchy has the black community in the chokehold, when in reality, our family and community structure is a matriarchy. And it's going to be a whole bunch of niggas saying that I'm lying and women can't lead, but please shut the fuck up. Your granny is the head of the family, bro. And it's not funny, but it's sad that y'all are just this willfully obtuse, bro. That's literally the oppressor whispering in your ear, dog. You know what I'm saying? And you need to dismantle that and dissect it and deal with that in your own time and not make the rest of us suffer for your own active ignorance and stupidity. And it's crazy to me that black women are our literal lifeline. They have led food into our mouth. They have led clothes on our backs. They have led a roof over our head. Like, what more can folks even ask for, dog? The best way to describe black women in the black community is they are like the Illuminati or the Akatsuki of the black community. They have allowed black men to live in this illusion of power that helps sustain our egos as we deal with white men, when they are the ones handling the real business in the background, and just allotted us this illusion of power just to keep the peace. And there's going to be a lot of little meat men that's going to get in the comments saying that I'm simping and I'm pandering and all this other stuff. But I can tell that you don't read, and I can tell you're one of the children that should have got left behind. And it's sad whenever I make a video talking about like misogyny, patriarchy, you know, protecting women, respecting women, all that different type of things. And I'm getting comments saying thank you. Like, you know, I appreciate it and all, but that's the bare minimum, bro. I don't know how the rest of these dudes grew up, but I grew up in a family that's 90% women, 10% men. I'm like one of 5 men born in a single generation, dog. For every one boy, there's like 9 women that are born in my family, bro. And if you want any idea of how the women in my family are, go watch The Woman King, go watch Black Panther. No, I'm not exaggerating. Me and my sister's relationship is literally like Shuri's and T'Challa's. My aunt and my cousins be moving like the Dora Milaje. They will beat your ass, and I have seen them beat people's ass. They beat my ass. I've seen them whoop plenty of men's ass up and down the street with no issue. My mom and my grannies are like, you know, Viola Davis and The Woman King, bro. This is not an exaggeration, dog. I can tell stories for days. I don't really have a choice, bro. You know what I'm saying? It's not like I'm being held hostage. I love it over here. But this is pretty much all I know. I can't grow up in the family that I grew up in and then just go out here and just disrespecting women, when every time I see another black woman, they remind me of one of my aunts, my cousin, my sister, my granny. Like, you know what I'm saying? That just don't make no type of sense to me. And then to sit here and lie to myself like they not the ones in our community with the real power, it's just fucking insane. It's just blatant stupidity.
Am I wrong
with abuse or violence or anything?
Am I wrong in the fact that you literally teed that all the way up by first talking about the difference between the white and the black manosphere and how it's already lived? You teed it all the way up.
The white manosphere of wanting like some type of slavery over their women, where the black men want some type of noble co-partnership. Like, no,
he literally made it.
He
literally made distinctions.
That's not what I said. No, you said the black men want to be respected and the white men want control.
No, he said we never been in a position. He literally said that.
Black men never had the control.
We've never
want the respect.
We've never been. Here's the thing: we've never been respected,
right?
Because of our position as black men. Because of our position as black men, we've never been respected. So respectfully, we don't even know what it looks like. You
and
think
my thing is right there. Respect looks like giving me control, angry man.
Okay, look, respect is the woman giving you control, but it's her consent.
Correct.
I said give, bro. I said give. I'm not taking. I want her to give.
Okay, but this is what I'm trying to tell you about white men. White men don't give a damn about giving consent. They don't care about that. White men. Have you listened to Andrew Wilson talk about forced doctrine?
Listen. As black men, I think when we play, I've heard you. I know forced doctrine. Fine. Let's not just go down this path, because I want you to understand, as you cut the floor from underneath him, you have nowhere for you to stand. Because as far as these women, these feminists, and all these arguments are concerned, you are the number 2. So when they cut the white man's patriarchal ability, they're going to cut all of your ability, because you're going to have no argument to defend you as to why you need control and authority.
We never had the same floor as the white man.
You're not listening to what I'm saying, right? I don't give a damn about feminists trying to cut the floor out from under white men's patriarchy, right? because we are men. What I'm saying is that we should define our own damn patriarchy for once. We should define our own patriarchy instead of trying to acquiesce to white men's patriarchy, which has failed them.
How can you redefine
hard to understand?
Yourself? How can you go on and try to redefine patriarchy yourself after you spent your life destroying the very concept?
Have you listened to what has been going on in the world? Their patriarchy has failed them.
Their women are gone and lost.
And so now we're going to follow the women in destroying patriarchy completely.
Who the hell said anything? See what I mean?
But that's what I'm considering. That's what I'm saying is happening. As you destroy that, you destroy any place for you to stand.
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you this question, right?
Wait.
Let me ask you this question when it comes to me.
This is wild. This is wild.
So the standard of black men is contingent upon the standard of white men.
White men.
No,
yeah, that's what he's saying.
That's what you don't get.
I'm happy
you control their realm. Period.
He's literally doing the thing.
He's literally saying it out loud.
Hold on, y'all.
He's literally doing the thing that is the reason why I said we need to be separate from the manosphere. This is literally why. Because you're trying to define your manhood by another group of men.
Bullshit. We just walked through the details just now. Look, when I said to you, respect looks like giving me control, not taking, not me being forceful, not me being a bully. As a woman, she's giving control. When I said it, respect is that. Now you at the same time you're agreeing on getting control, but you say, oh, well, those white men, they want control, as if control is a horrible thing. No, men want control over their castle, period. And it's not a black-white thing. This is a masculine thing across the board.
No, there's levels to control. There's levels to control in the way that control is exerted. Okay? So here's the thing. There's a reason why black men across the globe, regardless of what type of woman it is, we're desired by other women. The reason why we're desired by other women is because most of the other groups of men, most of the other races of men, their model of patriarchy is the white man's model of patriarchy. And this is the main reason why when you look at other countries, you see women treated a certain way.
Wait a minute. On the other side of that coin, you're also saying that black men, when women don't want to follow the fucking rules of their goddamn house, they go fuck you niggas who ain't got no backbone. That's what you're saying. Have more backbone.
What?
You're saying because you're saying black men are the least patriarchal. You're saying black men are the least rigid. You're saying black men have the least structure. And when the women want to get outside of their rigid patriarchal structure, who do they go with? You niggas. That's what you just said.
What I know. What? No, even though part of your statement is true. Part of your statement is absolutely true. Women do step out of the rigid patriarchal structure to get with black men because they know black men, because of our circumstances, don't have the rigid patriarchal structure. But that does not necessarily mean that woman that stepped out from under that rigid patriarchal structure is going to disrespect the black man that she got with.
Angry man, you know what else?
You're missing the nuance. You're missing the nuance.
I'm trading off. I'm willing to live without the other side. What I'm saying is what comes with that rigid patriarchal structure is group growth, group development, group respect, group territory, group wealth. The men of these groups have a stronger, more patriarchal network. That's when the women are women. They're going to go try to break rules anytime anyway. So I'm not even judging just on that. I'm saying the benefits of actual patriarchy outweigh the benefits of women fucking you.
But hold on. Here's the problem with what you just said, and you probably didn't even realize it. The reason why their rigid patriarchal structure creates and does all of those things ain't got shit to do with the women.
No, it don't.
The part that you just talked about is how the men in those rigid patriarchal structures deal with each other.
True.
So you can, and this is where the problem is, brother. This is where the problem is right here. If the Romans take over a country, that country has a culture, it has a structure, it has all types of shit that probably was working. The Romans are not going to adapt to that simply because it's working. They're going to wipe that shit out, and then they're going to create their structure that works. Men do not have to acquiesce to the structure of other men because we are the builders. As a group of men, and I know black men ain't ever gonna get this because you ain't used to being nothing but a goddamn slave. You can build your own structure.
Don't reinvent the wheel, bro.
You do not have to be a carbon copy of another group's patriarchal structure.
Do not reinvent the wheel because it makes your wife unhappy with you. Put wheels on the car and drive that bitch.
That's not reinventing the wheel.
That's what it sounds like. Because what are you going to create that's not patriarchy?
It is not because number one, a wheel is a physical structure that adheres to the laws of physics. We're talking ideology. There's more wiggle room there.
What other structure that you would create that would match the productivity of a rigid patriarchy that is not also a rigid patriarchy?
You said what?
How would you create a parallel structure that competes with a rigid patriarchy that is not also a rigid patriarchy?
You can create a patriarchal structure that is absolutely rigid in the places where it needs to be rigid.
And as a black man, what do you mean by that? Because if we're doing it because black needs to be its own thing and not white, what do you mean? Because this is why I say reinventing the wheel.
What do I mean by that? Is you do what men have always done. They look at the things that have come before them and they say, okay, this worked, but this didn't. This worked, but this is, brother, matter of fact, I'm glad you brought up the wheel. I'm glad you brought up the wheel. Hold on for a second. I'm glad you brought up the wheel. Do we still use wagon wheels or do we use tires?
We use the wheel.
I would use it when I said it.
We still use the wheel. You can make a little bit of tweaking to the thing.
And we're still using patriarchy. We're just adjusting to the time.
But I'm asking you what that looks like versus what the white man says, though. I'm asking you to be particular. And
I don't give a damn what the white man said.
You're still hung up on doing what the white man did.
Your whole position is that he's doing it bad. He's doing it wrong. I'm like, fine. What does yours look like?
I just told you. I laid it out for you
metaphor about wheels and shit.
I laid it out for you at the beginning of this conversation. I said to you specifically, when it comes to our women, we need to deal with women from the aspect of you respect me. So because you respect me, I have the control. Not I'm going to dominate you and take the control. All other aspects of patriarchy does not necessarily have to change. You're acting like it's a package deal. You're acting like the only way we can build and grow and deal with other men is to abuse the women. That's what you're acting like.
Well, what I'm saying is that it was never really like that anyway. It's like we're describing Christian culture like it's like 18th century Islamic culture or something like that. Like, no. Most of these women were not getting abused as we built this country. Most of these women in America were not suffering the types of abuse that you're charging men with right now. Like wholesale just saying that, man. We said every man had his wife tied up to the radiator.
Check this out. Up until recently, you had in this country what was called the rule of thumb. You know what that is, right?
Up until recently, how long is recently, bro? Come on.
18 what? The 50s. The 50s.
Well, you were just advocating over. Come on.
The 50s. You had rule of thumb. We can literally pull up advertisements that have a white man with his wife over his lap whooping her ass like she's a child. We can literally pull it up, bro.
They're pictures. Her over the knee.
We can literally pull it up. Why do you think women latched on to feminism so hard back in the day? Why do you think they bought into that? I'm going to tell you why they bought into that. Because the elites at the top of the pyramid, they said, you know what? We need to be able to control these men at the bottom of the pyramid. The easiest way to control these men is to utilize the women. So what they did
step away for a second.
Was they gave women something that they need, that they knew women would latch on to. They said, hey, women, y'all tired of the men ruling y'all, right? You tired of the men controlling y'all, right? That's how they was able to infiltrate that shit, because there was a flaw in the patriarchy. That was the flaw in the patriarchy.
Angry Man, no such law has ever existed in American or English history, as far as I can tell.
What law are you talking about?
Law, the rule of thumb, it was like a folktale type of thing. It wasn't quite literally legal. And then we start getting actually in the case of the history, like in America, there was up until like, I think after slavery, there was a famous, well, there was a less famous case, but a black man was an ex-slave. He got into trouble because he had beat his wife up. And he argued that he deserved the right to like punish his wife the same way the white man had or something like that. Like, it wasn't the rule of thumb though, but like there have been laws that definitely did allow men some level of like physical authority over their wives. But at the same time, we're kind of making these things like a mythology that we all believe in.
To this day, the marriage license literally gives a man ownership over his wife.
If that were true, she couldn't just divorce you and take your shit, bro. Property don't take your stuff and run.
Oh my God!
But the fact that if she's working with, who's generally the ones who's paying things out when it comes to alimony?
Well, whoever earns most of the money. And so up until recently, men were earning more money than women. Only in the last couple of years did women start hitting parity.
And how much are you hearing about women who are making a shit ton of money more? Oh, by the way, even when making a shit ton of money, when they're dividing specific assets, right? Do you hear how many men do you hear are keeping houses and cars?
How many men are keeping houses and cars?
Very few.
Even when she makes the majority of money, how many men are keeping the houses? Keeping the cars.
Few.
So now
is that not part of the rule of thumb?
So I don't think you're abusing the term now. The rule of thumb is literally about the rule of thumb literally references you can hit your wife with a stick no wider than your thumb. That's what it refers to, but there was never an actual legal practice codified in British or English law. It's sort of a folktale. And this is what I mean about we've sort of adopted so much feminist theology that we are feminist theologians by default.
So if I go back to, because I'm looking at it right now, I go back and I start mentioning how it's actually a part of Old English law from its true origins in the 1600s, I would be lying, right?
Apparently.
You pull it up and I'll pull it up.
It's on Google. You go ahead. Just type in rule of thumb. Type in rule of thumb. Just type in rule of thumb.
I'm reading it. It originally referred to rough practical measurements using a thumb, such as estimating an inch or judging distances.
Keep reading.
The myth likely originated from 1782's satirical cartoon, which mocked Judge Sir Francis Bowler, nicknamed Judge Thumb, for harsh rulings. There's no documented evidence.
What did it say true? What about say is about its true origins?
Some 19th American court cases referenced a thumb standard for
white true origins.
But these were not codified laws and were later rejected by higher courts.
Origin. I love how you skipped over you went to the myth part. I love look at the true origins.
Let me see if I can find more true.
The term likely originated from tradesmen such as brewers or woodworkers who used their thumb for quick, rough measurements rather than relying on exact formal tools.
The phrases date back to the late 1600s, referring to measurements. Thank you, because you already said it. Yes, thank you.
Why did they? Let me ask you a question with conservative. Why did Bill Clinton sign into law the Violence Against Women Act?
Because until 1994,
politics, brother, politics, man. I think we'll stop it right there. Shout out to everybody listening tonight. Welcome to the show. By the way, that time that Bill Clinton signed the Violence Against Women Act into law, Black women were posting like record numbers in domestic homicides against their intimate partners. They were literally killing men more than men were killing women. It was a great year to be a Black woman back then. And then they got the Violence Against Women Act. That was an ultimate perfect move. But thank you guys for coming out tonight. I want to talk a little bit about Black patriarchy, because obviously I got caught up in a whole argument about that kind of thing the other day, and I've been hearing a lot of other content. It's a fairly consistent position across the board. The overwhelming vast majority of Black Americans have some type of argument, disagreement, disdain, distaste for the very concept of patriarchy. Very few people are just openly, unabashedly like patriarchy good. And so I kind of want to explore that a little bit tonight.
All right, so look, one conversation that we haven't really had, and I feel like it's about time, but we haven't really talked about the patriarchy. And I've already talked about capitalism. I've already talked about the system of white supremacy. I've talked about this anti-nature system. I've talked about the lies, the corruption, etc. I've talked about all the ways that this world has disconnected itself from nature. But I realized that I haven't really talked about this. I haven't talked about the patriarchy. And honestly, after I started thinking about it, I realized it's one of the most important conversations that we can have right now. And I'm not just talking about from a political or a feminist standpoint. I'm talking about it from a spiritual one, from the level of energy, from the level of consciousness. You see, everything in this world operates on two forces, masculine and feminine energy. And those two are not enemies, they're complements. The masculine represents direction, will, focus, protection, logic.
Why does it give him like mythical nerd vibes? He's like a nerd on a quest to find the ultimate matriarch or something. This is like a mythical nerd up here.
The feminine represents intuition, creativity, nurturing, flow, emotion, and connection. The masculine acts and the feminine guides. The masculine builds and the feminine breathes life into what is built. That's balance. But what we have right now is a world completely out of balance. The masculine principle has taken over everything, and not the divine masculine, but the distorted masculine. And when that energy goes unchecked, it turns into domination, into control.
You know, this is reminding me of all of my my study on African time, and the idea that Western time is linear. You know, it has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it's going on in a definitive direction. Whereas African time is circular for the most part. You know, all of the time kind of flows together into the infinite now. And I'm getting a very similar vibe to that, where it's like they believe in masculine and feminine, and almost like that yin yang picture where it's like this nice circle that just folds into each other. Whereas like the white man, the Western concept of masculine, feminine is a definitive order, because it's really like God, man, woman, child, right? And so it's not circular in the way that he's describing it.
Hierarchy, greed, and disconnection. That's why we have a world that treats women like property, treats men like machines, treats nature like a resource, and treats compassion like a weakness. That's why people are burning out, relationships are falling apart, and the planet itself is screaming, because you can't build harmony through dominance. And this system, this patriarchy, has taught us that control equals order.
You know, this problem with the problem with him saying you can't build harmony without dominance, harmony, especially in the way he's conceiving of it, it's a theistic concept. It's heaven, effectively, right? It's utopia, it's heaven. And when you want to get to heaven, you have to die first. So he's trying to build the afterlife in heaven in life right now. And that goes against the principles of life. In life, there must be struggle. And in struggle, there will be dominance and hierarchy.
But what we're really seeing is that control destroys connection. The crazy part is this isn't just a social issue. This is a cosmic one. The imbalance of masculine and feminine energy is showing up everywhere. Our politics, our economy, our religions, our relationships, even inside of ourselves. It's the same pattern repeating on every level. And if the universe is mental, if reality reflects consciousness, then this world is just showing us the state of our collective mind. We've been living in a one-sided consciousness. All logic, no intuition, all doing and no being, all force and no flow. Now, I want to be clear, this is not about replacing patriarchy with matriarchy, because that's not the answer either. Because swinging to the other extreme doesn't fix the imbalance. It just flips it. True balance isn't about one side ruling the other. It's about cooperation. It's about remembering that both forces are divine. Both are needed. Both complement each other. And I think the reason that this conversation makes a lot of people uncomfortable because this world, this system, much of it is built upon that imbalance. In other words, this system can only survive if we stay disconnected from our feminine energy. Because the feminine is what connects us to nature, to emotion, to compassion, to the divine. And the moment that humanity fully reconnects with that energy, then this whole structure collapses. That's why this world has spent centuries demonizing feminine energy. That's why powerful women have been labeled as witches. That's why men are ashamed of showing emotion. That's why Black women especially have been silenced and targeted, because they carry the ancient mother frequency that cannot be controlled.
And there it is. Why does no matter which direction you go, which path you take, every path away from patriarchy leads right back to the Black woman is God?
But if man had to find out that his God was a woman,
I say the Black woman is God, and
Black woman is God.
I say the Black woman is God.
I don't like the Black woman is God because, you know, she was the first organism on this planet. Responsibility as a Black man. I don't like responsibility as a Black man in this country. I've never wanted to actually be in a position of leadership or responsibility in terms of being head of a household, being a husband, being a father. None of that has ever been a goal of mine. It's never really attracted me or seemed like an attractive reality. And as I get older and I just continue to watch the way in which our society progresses, how we treat certain things like children, how we treat women's rights, how we treat patriarchy, how we treat capitalism, how we treat all these different components of our society, and how things just seem to be getting absolutely worse.
This whole video feels like a virtue signal to the jazz hoes. He is trying to attract a compatible jazz hoe, saying, you know, I really don't even believe in responsibility because, you know, the way the patriarchy and capitalism just did the world dirty, I can't be a part of that. And he needed a nice big titty jazz hoe to be like, ooh, yeah, that's so smart, you right.
And not better. And then how callous we are to so many things we deem as being outside of the norm. There's absolutely no way in which I would want to contribute new life to this system or otherwise build a family, build a unit that is now I'm responsible for, and it's dependent on me participating in this system for their survival. I'm good on all that. Thank you. But I don't like responsibility as a Black.
The patriarchy convinced men to hate femininity. And once you hate femininity, it don't matter who it's attached to. It don't matter if it's attached to a woman, a man, a child. It don't matter if
This is another thing too. Every time you start to break away from the traditional concepts of patriarchy, you start putting femininity on things that don't belong on. Like, what do you mean it doesn't matter if it's attached to a man or a woman or a child? Like, what do you
femininity,
mean saying,
it
bro?
don't matter who. The patriarchy convinced men to hate femininity. And once you hate femininity, it don't matter who it's attached to. It don't matter if it's attached to a woman, a man, a child. It don't matter if it's now and then. They put everything that makes men decent people: integrity, patience, intelligence, the pursuit of intelligence and education, having empathy, being nurtured. They put all of that under the umbrella of femininity. Conveniently, those are female traits. That's
what. Hold For a minute, I thought he was describing a dude. What do you mean female traits? What are you talking
Femininity,
about, my nigga?
that under the empathy, being nurtured, they put you into the patriarchy convinced men to hate femininity. And once you hate femininity, it don't matter who it's attached to. It don't matter if it's attached to a woman, a man, a child. It don't matter if it's now and then. They put everything that makes men decent people: integrity, patience, intelligence, the pursuit of intelligence and education, having empathy, being nurtured. They put all of that under the umbrella of femininity. Conveniently, those are female traits. That's what females do, right? And it automatically does the trick, right? Now men don't want to be smarter. They don't want to be more empathetic. They don't want to because those are woman traits. That's the game.
You know what? I'm gonna give these niggas the Dipset pass, because Cameron and Jewels and Jim Jones and them, they tried to pull this off once upon a time. But as a general rule of thumb, and I'm this nigga right here, especially him right here with the Yankee pink fitted hat. You don't never trust a nigga with a pink fitted hat on.
I hate patriarchy, but I hate it from a black man's perspective. I cannot hate it from a black woman's perspective or feminist perspective or misandrist or womanist perspective, because I'm neither. I hate it from a black man's perspective because patriarchy made it possible for a group of men to burn my great-grandfather's bar down.
Now, that's the other common through line I keep really picking up on as I listen to a lot of black people talk about patriarchy. Patriarchy is you can never unlink patriarchy from white men. And if you listen to a lot of these people talk about patriarchy, the one thing that they always describe patriarchy as, or the one thing that they always bring up in reference to patriarchy, is white supremacy, white men, white church. All these concepts all kind of have a similar through line, whereas I think I see something underneath your alleged fear of patriarchy that maybe you need to talk about. But a lot of people just associate patriarchy, especially where we're talking about black men and women at this point. They always kind of just revolve it around white men for some reason. And we'll come back to that later, I suppose.
In Chicago, for tens of thousands of black men to be sent to Vietnam and killed on the front lines, for the Tuskegee experiments, Tulsa, Rosewood, Lake Lanier, the mass graves under the ground in Central Park, for Tamir Rice, Philandro Castile, Sandra Bland, Lamar Arbery, and so on and so forth. Patriarchy makes it possible for gentrification, for the miseducation of black men in the school to prison pipeline. Patriarchy creates men like Donald Trump, Elon Musk, Mark Furman. Patriarchy makes it possible and legal for slavery, Jim Crow. Patriarchy makes it possible for my black home to be undervalued purposefully. Redlining.
Patriarchy undervalued his home. That's the new one. I gotta write that one down. I didn't know patriarchy was out here messing with the banking system too.
Over sentencing, over policing, still the neighborhoods are dangerous. Patriarchy creates the perfect conditions for ICE and mass deportation and femicide.
Patriarchy hates Mexicans. That one is probably true. That one's probably true. I don't have a definitive answer on that, but if you tell me patriarchy hates Mexicans, I'm like, I don't know. Maybe.
In Epstein Island and the protection of the monsters that partook in such demonic and animalistic and barbaric behaviors. So I hate patriarchy because patriarchy was never created to empower me as a black man. It was created to make sure that as a black man, I do not progress. And because of that.
Now, notice here again, a similar theme with what I was talking about with Angry Man, like this idea that there is a quote white patriarchy and the white patriarchy is somehow out to get you. Therefore, white patriarchy becomes the enemy, when in fact, what you're really doing is making patriarchy as a concept the enemy, and now there'll be no patriarchy left for anybody.
When I do progress, I am met with violent opposition in every turn. So I hate patriarchy and I want it dismantled. There is nothing about patriarchy that is attractive to me. There's nothing about patriarchy that makes me feel encouraged or excited about getting married and building a family under such a system that was created to make sure that my family purposefully is divided and conquered. And
Wait, you can't start a family because the white man gonna win. And then people tell me I'm problematic, right? You realize anytime I point out these just weak mental positionings, I'm the problem here. Like, how dare you point out how retarded I am? Like, my bad, bro. I didn't realize we were covering up your retardation. I didn't know that was what I didn't think we were related like that. I didn't know I was supposed to hide you.
Son is taught that maybe bouncing a ball is better than becoming an inventor. So I hate patriarchy. I don't want anything to do with it. I want it dismantled, destroyed, and to never be returned. So when I hear black men talk about access to patriarchy and we need to uphold the patriarchy, I know that you are a submissive man. You are a traitor. I cannot say that you're uneducated or you don't quite understand what you're talking about. Yes, you do.
And this is where it really gets like interesting. It's like not only are you anti-patriarchy, but if your fellow black man is pro-patriarchy, he becomes a traitor. And then the question is, traitor to what? Because if you're not a patriarchy, what are you? And what is it that you say I'm betraying? Because if either I'm being a patriarch, which puts me outside of the black community, or I'm not being a patriarch, which puts me in the black community, but then what am I?
But if man had to find out that his God was a woman,
I say the black woman is God, and
black woman is God.
I say the black woman is God.
The black woman is God because, you know, she was the first organism on this planet.
You know what patriarchy is, and you know what patriarchy has done to your people, what it's done to you. But you're submissive. You're weak, man. And so you'd rather join them than beat them. Because patriarchy can and will be dismantled.
By what? I mean, I think historically, the only things that really defeat a patriarchy is another patriarchy or some type of catastrophe. I don't know, a flood, maybe a comet hit, a volcano exploded or something like that.
But a lot of you just want your turn. Because slaves don't dream of freedom. They dream of becoming masters.
You know what? I will read that third comment on the side. Good eye. It says, if this is how black women and children are treated under white patriarchy, imagine how we will be treated under a black man's patriarchy. I'll never let any of them fools lead me anywhere. They just want to look like they have power over black women. The only demographic who has never been afraid to face white teen men head on. Oh, snap. And see, that's really why I think you get the argument from Angry Man the other day, where he's effectively arguing for a kinder, gentler, black or patriarchy?
Oh,
politics. What does that mean? Politics? No, I need more.
Wait.
I need more.
So what you're saying is I cannot put in the back chat right now a clip of Sean Connery, the original James Bond, telling Barbara Walters that when women get out of hand,
I love that.
Just
clip.
a little crazy. You just
I love that clip. I love it.
I love that clip.
Now you know what? That's a great time. This is a great time for me to actually pull that clip up. Let's go pull up the Sean Connery clip with Barbara Walters. This is a very old clip, actually. This is like when I was probably a baby, maybe even a little bit before. But nah, it looked like when I was probably a baby when this came out. And for whatever reason, you know, these grown men take offense to this. And, you know, this is why I love the past, by the way, because I like to kind of look back and see kind of and chart where we've come from and maybe kind of fill in the gaps along the way as to how we got here.
Playing golf with men than women.
Years ago, you did an interview, which may come back to haunt you. You know what I'm going to say, right?
No.
Okay. You did an interview in which you said, not the worst thing to slap a woman now and then. As I remember, you said you don't do it with a clenched fist. It's better to do it with an open hand. Yeah. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I didn't love that.
I haven't changed my opinion.
You haven't?
No, not at all.
That's right. Stand on that shit, Sean. That's James Bond, bitch. What do you mean he ain't supposed to change his opinion? No, he's standing on that shit. That's how you do that. That's back when men still had balls on TV. This is probably the last real appearance of a man having balls on TV. Every other time beyond that, they were just acting and shit.
Get back in the kitchen.
You think it's good to slap a woman?
No, I don't think it's good. I
think it's bad.
I don't think it's that bad. I think that it depends entirely on the circumstances and if it merits it. Yeah.
What would merit it?
Well, if you have tried everything else, and women are pretty good at this.
Said, if you tried everything else, damn it, why did I just start thinking about that joke about the black eyes? You know, what do you tell a chick with two black eyes? I'm not going to finish the joke.
They can't leave it alone. They don't want to have the last word, and you give them the last word, but they're not happy with the last word. They want to say it again and get into a really provocative situation. Then I think it's absolutely right.
To give her a good slap.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sean Connery. You made those niggas on the panel cry the other day. I just want you to know, Sean, you made these niggas on the panel cry the other day.
I hit a woman for the first time in my life, and I'm having fun.
That was funny. And you know what? Barbara Pussy probably got wet when he said that shit. You know, them bitches want to fuck Sean Connery. Stop acting like that shit was so bad.
So violence against women makes them want to have sex with you. Do you know why
he didn't hit her? He talked about. He made a joke to her about violence. Like I said, you made these niggas cry, Sean. What's going on this panel? Shout out to my man Lasers with the $2. Appreciate y'all coming out tonight. Hit that super chat button for me, y'all.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Oh, well, I was cute. Give me the money.
Connery, I can't believe
I didn't say that.
Oh no, we don't want to. We don't at all.
Right? Y'all niggas don't leave James Bond alone.
I didn't say that.
Not at all.
Sean Connery is Sean Connery is the real example of why they make the joke. What do you tell a woman with two black eyes?
Nothing.
You go. Look, that was the reality. That wasn't a joke back then.
The reason why
no. Here's the reality. In the same
Hold on. The reason why we have those jokes and that satire is because of how prevalent that reality was, right? See, here's the funny thing about this hood conservative. As a black man, you believe that the white man beat y'all's ass during slavery, but you don't think he beat his woman.
I just don't care that much.
Oh,
really? Yo, I ain't never see a group of niggas owing and awing so much in my life.
Ooh. You don't think he beat his woman?
I just don't care that much. It's like everybody had a sound effect button and all of them shits went off at the same time. Like, what the fuck was that? All these niggas. It's like all of these niggas' pussies tightened up at the same time. What the fuck just happened here?
He beat his woman.
I just don't care that much.
Really?
No, you don't care.
You telling me?
Wait, hold on, Hill Soda. Hold on, Hill Soda. Wait, Hill Soda. Wait. Hill Soda, didn't you just say that I don't care as a cop-out statement?
I don't care. Well, listen. Let me.
Oh, okay. So you copping out
there. Yeah. I'm copping out. I don't care what happens next door most of the time. I'm just chilling. I'm staying out of most of those things. I'm staying out of next door's problems. I will cop out to what goes on over there. You know why? How is it that I'm supposed to be a slave getting my ass whipped? And I should feel guilty about the master's wife also getting her ass whipped.
Nobody said
that's
that.
A weird extension.
Nobody said that you should feel guilty.
Master too. That's exactly what you just said. You mean to tell me you could believe that the master whip your ass, but he not whipping his wife's ass? That's exactly what you just told to me. You just told me that like 20 seconds ago.
Hey, hold on, Hill Soda.
They make the joke, what do you tell a woman with two black eyes?
Nothing. You go.
Look, that was the reality. That wasn't a joke back then.
The reason why
no. Here's the reality.
Hold on. The reason why we have those jokes and that satire is because of how prevalent that reality was, right? See, here's the funny thing about this hood conservative. As a black man, you believe that the white man beat y'all's ass during slavery, but you don't think he beat his woman.
I just don't care that much.
Really?
No, you don't care.
You telling me?
Wait, hold on, Hill Soda. Hold on, Hill Soda. Wait, Hill Soda. Wait. Hill Soda, didn't you just say that I don't care as a cop-out statement?
I don't care. Well, listen. Let me.
Okay. So you copping out there.
I will cop out to what goes on over there. You know why? How is it that I'm supposed to be a slave getting my ass whipped, and I should feel guilty about the master's wife also getting her ass whipped?
Nobody said
that's
that.
a weird extension.
Nobody said that you should feel guilty. No one told you how to feel. No one told you how to feel.
Master's wife is also your master, bro. Why are you even extending your feelings that far out? This is what I don't get about his slavery analogy. And this is why I hate slave playing with you niggas. Every time we start talking about some deep ideas, some type of philosophical concept, all you niggas want to do is slave play. And I'm really getting tired of slave playing with you niggas. I be trying to talk about ideas and their purest concept. I want to boil a thing down to its atomic particles and whatnot. And you niggas just want to slave play all the time.
No one told you how to feel.
Nobody said that. That's not brother. Check this out.
My whole point is this. One, I do not believe
that
controlling your wife is automatically
your own. Bro, you're running with a bro. First of all, you mischaracterize something and then you're running with it.
Correct.
No one said that.
I just ran it back, bro. That was the entire premise of your metaphor. If Master beat you, why you can't believe he beat on his woman? Like, why would I care, first of all? Second of all, why do you believe that? These are two parallel things, but again, both questions are valid. Like, so what? And why would I just believe this story?
The entire reason that I brought that up is because you don't want to understand that there could possibly be a flaw in what we know to be white patriarchy. You just don't want to see that part of it because you believe that the only way that a relationship is going to work is if we go back to the archaic practice of men having total control over their women.
Now, my whole contention is really the idea that there is a quote white patriarchy, and then also on top of that, that white patriarchy is like uniquely, distinctly oppressive and abusive, and it's gone too far. It's way off the rail. We need to correct it. We have to kind of maybe even reimagine a wheel. They're gonna basically rebuild the wheel. They're gonna rediscover the wheel, reinvent the wheel rather, because white patriarchy. One, that's your charge of the white patriarchy. That's not. That's
no,
why
that's
you're
your whole misnomer. That's your whole shit.
But right, you're accusing white patriarchy, which really you're accusing all patriarchy of that. Because which patriarchy is not that?
What didn't happen?
What
patriarchy is not that?
How can you substantiate that?
What patriarchy? Exactly. Again, name a patriarchy that is not rigid and restrictive. It has rules for men as well. Don't get me wrong. Some patriarchies are incredibly violent for the men, and then it's even more violent for the women as well in those situations. But there's rules and restrictions on everybody. That's the nature of patriarchy. It's a rigid order imposed by the men. It may be more or less rigid from where you go, depending on the culture and whatnot. But again, there are rules enforced by men. Patriarchy is not that. Then if the white man is uniquely guilty and evil,
you only know white patriarchy. You only know white patriarchy.
So if that's the only one there is, my point still stands. When you destroy that, there's no reason for your argument.
You don't know what any other form of patriarchy is.
I'm asking you to name one.
Let's stop for a second.
Name one. Don't ask me what I know. It's your argument.
For a second.
You don't know any other form of patriarchy.
And you know what, Angry Man, this is a great time to stop for a minute. Hit that like button, y'all. There is a video that actually made me even start this entire stream up, and we're going to get to that in a minute. But before we do that, let's take a look over on the white man's patriarchy. Let's see what's happening on the white side of patriarchy. What is white patriarchy up to right now, current year 2026, y'all?
And I could go, as you know all too well, all academic on you and give you the Aristotelian explanation for the importance of the family. And actually, that's really important. In short, you got to have a good family, strong families in order to have strong communities. You have to have strong communities to have, in our system, strong states. You've got to have strong states in order to have a right-sized federal government.
The Heritage Foundation is trying to shift focus from a recent staff exodus and controversies by pushing a new report on reviving marriage and birth rates in America. The group's Saving America by
The white patriarchy wants to revive marriage and birth rates, y'all. Revive marriage and birth rates, all right? You got to do some more humping and stay together after you're done humped. Is it really that hard?
Even the family paper urges the Trump administration to boost heterosexual couples having kids through tax credits, a marriage boot camp, and even limiting commercial activity on.
Not gonna lie, marriage boot camp sounds a little bit scary. You got to get in marriage shape, all right? We're going to send you to marriage boot camp so you can lose some of that single people fat and get in the nice, slim, trim marriage shape.
Pushing a new report on reviving marriage and birth rates in America. The group's Saving America by Saving the Family paper urges the Trump administration to boost heterosexual couples having kids through tax credits, a marriage boot camp, and even limiting commercial activity on a uniform day of rest. Heritage President Kevin Roberts called this an existential crisis during a Monday press briefing, noting U.S. birth rates have dropped to a record low of 1.59 per woman, well below the 2.1 needed to replace the population. He warned that without change, America could rely solely on immigration or technology to sustain its numbers. This comes after more than a dozen Heritage staffers left last month to join Mike Pence's group, Advancing American Freedom, and amid backlash over Roberts defending Tucker Carlson's interview with anti-Semitic figure Nick Fuentes. Roberts skipped comment on that drama, instead saying the report took 2 to 3 years to craft due to its complex issues, with timing aimed for early January as Congress returns.
It's back. My
Project 2025. Actually, it never went away. If you thought that the Heritage Foundation, the group behind the radical governing blueprint known as Project 2025, was finished dismantling American democracy, think again. Now they're turning their sights even more keenly on America's women. The same movement that drafted a plan to remake and undo much of the federal government has now unveiled a chilling new manifesto, one that is aimed at making it harder for women to work, harder for them to live independently, and easier to push them back into financial dependence on husbands or fathers. This is not hyperbole, in the same way that Project 2025 wasn't hyperbole, though plenty of critics dismissed it as such, especially as Trump himself disingenuously disavowed it. 1 year into Trump's second term, groups tracking his administration say that roughly half of Project 2025 has already been implemented. That includes dismantling federal diversity and inclusion programs, dramatically expanding immigration enforcement, rolling back environmental protections, eliminating federal funding for public broadcasters like NPR and PBS, and so much more. That blueprint also called for authorizing military troops to help seal the border, removing immigration enforcement protections from places like schools and churches, and dramatically expanding immigration detention facilities. If there's one lesson to take from all of this, it's this. Do not underestimate the determination of this movement or its hostility toward liberal values and the expansion of democratic rights for groups that they see as outsiders. And they see women as outsiders. Their latest document, Saving America by Saving the Family, a foundation for the next 250 years. You got to give it to these people. They think big. It was published in January. Its purported goal is to reverse the country's declining birth rate. And you can't physically force women, if you can't physically force women to have babies, which is what abortion restrictions aim to do, you can design government policies that pressure women into having more babies. It's not exactly rocket science, at least not from the perspective of the ordinary caveman. You cut off opportunities outside the home. You make the public sphere hostile to women's independence. You create a system where the only viable path left for women is dependence on a man.
Why are these bad things? Why are these bad things? You have to create incentives. Shout out to Ms. Cantrell in the chat. That is the perfect way to frame that. He's just framing it because he's like a foreign brown twink or something. But in the patriarchy, you call that incentivizing. You have to incentivize positive behavior. We have no problem doing that when it comes to other things. You know, you incentivize contributing to the national budget by forcing people to pay taxes, right? If you don't pay your taxes, you go to jail or you lose money or whatever. We take things away from you, right? We incentivize. Either way, you got to put pressure on the game. And this is where I think a lot of black men run off the rails. This is why Angry Man was attempting to argue something like a kinder, gentler patriarchy. It's like this unwillingness to apply pressure on a wide scale, or even on a more personal scale. It's like you have to soft shoe everything. And I think that is automatically a losing disposition. You're like, what is the purpose of a negotiation if you're never willing to flip the table over? Both parties have to come into it with the understanding that somebody just might flip the table if I get a little bit too crazy.
For survival. In other words, you drag the country back to a time when women had fewer choices. If Project 2025 laid out how a conservative administration could reshape the machinery of government, this new blueprint lays out the social vision behind it, a plan for what American family life should look like. And when you strip away the soft language about family values, what its proposals would actually accomplish, if carried out, is the rollback of decades of.
Why would you think, St. Nick's, why would you think they're only talking about white birth rates? Think about it. With Black American women in particular outpacing any other ethnic group of women with exercising their reproductive health care rights, there are a lot of Black babies who just don't make it across the finish line, right? And so why would you think that it's only the white birth rates that are down? All of the Native American birth rates are down, which is Black and white for the most part. The Latinos, they just have a constant influx of new people, so it's almost impossible to really count. But don't just assume they're only talking about white people in terms of flat birth rates. The Black American, It's really an immigration over on the black side, keeping our numbers really popping as well. If you remove black immigration, black immigrants probably have a lot more kids anyway, for similar reasons than like the Latinos. They just believe more in actually having the baby. But still, Keisha from down the block, Jenny from the block, they're not really, you can't trust them to keep the baby.
Women's freedom. According to its authors, the reason women are having fewer children is simple: feminism. The Heritage Foundation blames the feminist movement for encouraging women to rethink their relationship to men, marriage, children, and family. According to the document, quote, those two forces, big government liberalism and second wave feminism, combined to radically change how men and women thought about their roles in the home, end quote. In other words, women today have too many choices. Your daughters and granddaughters can dream too big in America and, God forbid, pursue opportunities outside the home. From the perspective of the new right, those freedoms aren't progress. They are, in fact, the problem. So the solution...
Yeah, you cannot all be a boss babe. You cannot all girl boss your way through life. The girl boss was a relatively rare thing in the human span of history, and it was always a rich man's daughter or wife. Now every girl who hits 18 thinks she can girl boss it, and it's just not going to happen for you, babe. It's just not.
The right proposes is to make those choices harder for women, much, much harder. Quote, the state and federal governments should recognize the natural differences between men and women. They should also preserve this distinction between the sexes in law. Preserve this distinction between the sexes in law. The law should discriminate against women. Put them back in their place. The plan goes on to discourage women from higher education.
The law already discriminates against men by promoting women. It already puts its thumb on the scale for women, which is a de facto discrimination against men.
Arguing that college delays marriage and reduces fertility, and it frames contraception itself as part of this so-called crisis. Quote, as nations industrialize, several factors conspire to reduce birth rates. These include the proliferation of birth control, more prospects for women to receive higher education and work outside the home, the delayed financial independence of young adults, and the government's role in old age Social Security, end quote. Translation? Women controlling their own fertility, women seeking higher education, women working outside the home, it's all just bad. But the agenda goes even further than that. The report calls for reshaping tax policy to reward large married families while cutting support for single mothers. This is taken right from Hungary's playbook, which offers income tax reductions for...
That is an excellent idea. You incentivize large married families and disincentivize single motherhood.
It's all just bad. But the agenda goes even further than that. The report calls for reshaping tax policy to reward large married families while cutting support for single mothers. This is taken right from Hungary's playbook, which offers income tax reductions for each additional child that you have. If you have 5 children in Hungary, you pay no tax. Unsurprisingly, no one took up the offer because no one actually wants to have 5 children in 2026. So Hungary reduced it to a tax-free life for just having 3 children starting last year. That too has failed.
You know, Freeman's Journal, you raised an interesting point. So you says your grandpa wanted to see Marilyn Monroe naked. And I think one other way, it's not an explanation, not trying to like remove culpability, but I think the way feminism was sold to women as a kind of like removing of the shackles, they kind of they spiked the resentment that a lot of women had towards men. I think feminism was also sold to men too, in a different way, obviously. Like Playboy is another great way to sell feminism to men.
Because nobody wants 3 children in 2026 either. So starting this year, if you have just a paltry 2 children in Hungary, you pay no income tax for life. And since young women getting educated and staying unmarried are the real scourge of a society, starting this year in Hungary, if you're under 30 and you bring just 1 single life into this world, the rest of your happy maternal Hungarian life is tax-free. But I digress, because this isn't quite Hungary yet. Here in America, this proposal, akin to Hungary's, proposes eliminating child care incentives that help women work outside the home. It supports legal frameworks that could effectively ban in vitro fertilization. by granting legal rights to embryos from the moment of fertilization. It criticizes no-fault divorce, the laws that make it easier for women to leave abusive marriages. Taken together, the America they envision looks very different from the one most Americans live in today, a society organized around a rigid patriarchal structure, men as providers, women as dependents, and very few ways out. Consider this line from the report, which attempts to explain the country's declining birth rate. Quote, today's adults may favor autonomy and personal development over raising children more than earlier generations did. Thus, greater opportunity cost rather than the greater actual cost might be a better explanation. Translation, women today have opportunities their grandmothers could only dream of. They can pursue education, careers, independence, lives that extend beyond marriage and motherhood. From the perspective of the new right, that's the crisis. As the writer Jill Filipovich has warned, quote, they see women being able to control our own fertility as the root of the problem. They're right. Women being able to control our own fertility is one of the most powerful tools women have for independence. Women who...
It's not just her fertility. That's also his baby. Why don't we ever just frame it as women wanting to like suck a man's baby out of their womb is the conversation? Let's describe it like that, all right? 50% of his DNA made that child. Just by happenstance of nature, you're carrying that child, but that's his child. And you know how you know it's his child? Because the minute that baby breathes real free air, you're going to want money from that man. Then it's going to be his child. And so it's not just a right in an abstract. It's a person, it's a man's child.
Cannot control their own fertility are under greater patriarchal control. The right has already succeeded in stripping the right to abortion from American women. It was never about saving babies. It was entirely about forcing women back into submission. Trust that when they identify contraception as a tool that shoulders a large share of the blame for the present malady, they are telling you that they are coming for contraception next. Historically speaking, we've seen versions of this before. In the 1920s, Benito Mussolini launched a campaign in fascist Italy known as the Battle for Births. The goal was to increase the population and strengthen the nation. Women were pushed out of jobs. Families were rewarded for having more children. Motherhood was glorified, while women's independence was deliberately restricted.
Oh, dear God, motherhood was glorified. Fascism is when motherhood is glorified. Do you hear what they just told you?
We've seen versions of this before. In the 1920s, Benito Mussolini launched a campaign in fascist Italy known as the Battle for Births. The goal was to increase the population and strengthen the nation.
Now, do you understand why fascism is in my Twitter bio? Make fascism sexy again, okay? Fascism is when you love your wife and you keep her pregnant. Don't listen to me. Mussolini said it. That's El Duce. Are you going to argue with me or El Duce?
Before. In the 1920s, Benito Mussolini launched a campaign in fascist Italy known as the Battle for Births. The goal was to increase the population and strengthen the nation. Women were pushed out of jobs. Families were rewarded for having more children. Motherhood was glorified, while women's independence was deliberately restricted. The new right's version is wrapped in the language of religious revival and family stability. But underlying logic is strikingly similar. If women aren't producing enough children, the answer is not to make parenthood easier with things like childcare and paternal and maternal leave and education subsidies.
No, those are single mother programs. That's not going to help. We need to have a baby battle, all right? We're giving out prizes to the biggest bellies and the fattest babies born. That's what we're doing. We're giving out prizes to moms. We're going to do some county fair shit. You know how you go to the county fair and you're giving out prizes for little things like that. The woman with the biggest belly, we're busting out the little tape measure and everything. And the babies with the biggest birth per year. You're going to have to bring your baby's birth record up to the county fair. And we're giving out prizes, y'all. Going to go home with like a little baby pig or something like that.
The answer is to make women's independence harder. And the people promoting this vision aren't even hiding their goals. Scott Yenner, a conservative political scientist recently appointed to a senior leadership role at the Heritage Foundation, has described universities as the citadels of our gynecocracy, meaning a society run by women. He argues that higher education should be de-emphasized.
Did he just say gynecocracy? This how I know he gay. He just really wanted to slip the word cock in there where it didn't even belong. What the hell do you mean a gynecocracy? There's no. Why'd you say that, bro? What do you mean by that? You just slipped that word in there like we wasn't supposed to notice. What does that even mean? A gynecocracy? What? Hold on now. Hold on a minute.
As the citadels of our gynecocracy.
Okay, I just had to make sure I wasn't tripping. This nigga really, what's a gynecocracy? How does that even work? I need somebody to explain that one to me.
How do it equivalate?
And well, guys, if I could still show you around, here is the biggest, gayest man in the world.
Wow. So gay. Promoting this vision aren't even hiding their goals. Scott Yenner, a conservative political scientist recently appointed to a senior leadership role at the Heritage Foundation, has described universities as the citadels of our gynecocracy, meaning a society run by women. He argued.
Yeah, I gotta isolate that, right? That is definitely a drop. Like the way he just put it out there, like thoughtfully.
Gynecocracy, meaning a society run by women. He argues that higher education should be de-emphasized in order to advance what he calls family matters. In a 2021 speech at the National...
That was a great show back in the 90s, by the way. That was like the last hoorah of the Black family on television. It all got drastically worse after Family Matters. There's a bunch of single mom content and modern cuck dad content. Family Matters was like peak Black family culture right after the Cosby Show, because Family Matters came a little bit later than the Cosby Show. Cosby was like late 80s, early 90s. Family Matters was like mid 90s.
National Conservatism Conference, he went even further, suggesting that women should be pushed out of large parts of the workforce.
Every effort must be made not to recruit women into engineering, but rather to recruit and demand more of men who become engineers. Ditto for med school and the law and every trade. If every Nobel Prize winner is a man, that's not a failure. It's kind of a cause for celebration. Why can't our celebration of male excellence in sports be translated into all facets of life? More successful men will mean more happy citizenry and a stronger nation.
Happy men equal a strong nation. Gets better, by the way, in that same speech. That's a serious speech. It's not a satire. Yenner attacked women who prioritized careers over family and revealed something else about his thinking that should frighten everyone. Listen.
Such medicated, quarrelsome, and meddlesome women gain their meaning through the seeming participation in the global project. They are agents of the new world, but not new life. Such women are now the backbone of every left-wing cosmopolitan party in the Western world.
Wait a minute. Let me just breathe this in for a minute. We have professional invested, like you can look at his face. He's not like behind the camera. I mean, he's not like behind an avatar or whatever. You have a professional white man standing in front of an audience of fellow professionals, polite society, as they call it, talking shit about women. Oh my God. I never thought we would see the day The professional class has finally embraced calling out women.
Such medicated, quarrelsome, and meddlesome women gain their meaning through the seeming participation in the global project. They are agents of the new world, but not new life. Such women are now the backbone of every left-wing cosmopolitan party in the Western world.
The white man is openly calling out women, y'all.
I hit a woman for the first time in my life, and I'm having fun.
From the Greens in Germany to the Democratic Party in America. And if our ideal woman is a childless media scold or a barren bureaucratic apparatchik, there is no question whether we can have a future. We can't. There is a question of whether we deserve one.
There is a question of whether we deserve a future.
Feminist women, y'all time is running out. He was spitting corporate bars. That was polite society bars right there. I think you don't understand what just happened. They're getting upset with women. I've been watching a lot of content where like the professional intellectual class are now starting to make an argument against women.
Setting aside the misogyny contempt dripping from that rant, that line should send a chill down your spine because it reveals something profound about the worldview behind this movement. Who exactly is the we that he's talking about? Certainly not the meddlesome women he condemns for finding meaning outside the home. Yenner seems to believe that he and men like him are fully entitled to dictate and hold ownership over women's futures. And this isn't some fringe internet rant. This same line of thinking now sits inside the leadership ranks of the Heritage Foundation, the same group helping shape policy for the Trump administration. Yenner's comments reveal another political calculation behind this agenda. Educated women and women who make independent decisions about their lives tend to vote Democratic. Yenner seems to think that's because Democrats throw great parties. But the reality is much simpler. Many Americans, men and women, who don't believe society should be organized around patriarchy, racial superiority, or religious nationalism.
Notice how racial superiority automatically goes next to patriarchy. They will never allow those ideas to decouple. Anytime you have to talk about patriarchy, you have to talk about racial superiority. You can never like just talk about a thing.
Tend to gravitate toward the party that defends civil rights, pluralism, and personal freedom. For men of the new right like Yenner, policies that push women out of universities, out of the workforce, and out of public life don't just force women back into the home. They fundamentally reshape political power, which is why this agenda is not just about culture. It's about control over women's futures, because these far-right extremists and the movement surrounding Donald Trump, the real problem is women themselves. Women who think. Women who choose. And they may think things and choose things that threaten the power structure of the new right. So their answer is to push women back into their place, to strip.
What if she's thinking about murder? What if she chooses to take your kids and run away with the milkman?
Strip away their autonomy, to push them out of public life, to narrow the futures available to them. Ultimately, this agenda is not really about solving demographic decline. If increasing the natural replacement rate was the actual goal, the proposals would actually look very different. Countries around the world face falling birth rates, and they've taken very different approaches. They expand childcare. They guarantee paid paternal leave for mothers, maternal or paternal leave for mothers and for fathers. They make housing more affordable. They support working mothers. This plan proposes none of that. Instead, it calls for shrinking the social safety net, especially the programs that allow women to live independently. If fewer women.
Yes, we're literally paying for women to live apart from men. Why do you think that would make a healthy society? When have you ever seen that work in any culture ever, where the women are just totally independent, separate from the men? And they still have babies.
If women have fewer options, the thinking goes, they'll have more children. They'll be bound more tightly to the men in their lives with fewer ways out. This is about dragging the country back to a time when women had only one choice: to submit to men.
No, it's going back to a time where you had to make better choices, though. That's the other side of the equation. When you give people unlimited choice, they make a lot of bad choices. Because in a lot of those options are bad options. Most choices are not the right choice. That's the problem with the right choice. There's only one or two of them, really. All the other options, all the other choices are usually bad. They're just not the right choice. That's just the thing. Right has like definitive parameters. This is why they say narrow is the path to heaven, wide is the path of sin, something like that. You know, there's only a couple of ways to get a thing right. You know, one of the best quotes I think I've ever heard is really about family and how happy families tend to be happy and in a lot of similar ways, a lot of easily repeated ways. Whereas like unhappy families tend to be unhappy in their own individual, unique hell, right? Each unhappy family is like an infinite multiverse of different types of hell, where all the happy families have a lot of things in common.
Project 2025 has already shown us how quickly the far right can move their ideas into government policy. And the architects of these plans are not fringe figures. They are inside the administration. The CIA director, John Ratcliffe, the FCC chairman, Brendan Carr, Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, the SEC chair, Paul Atkins, the trade advisor, Peter Navarro, and Russell Vought, one of the chief authors of Project 2025.
So I guess these are like, you know, the new modern MAGA patriarch men right there. Those are the white men trying to make motherhood great again or whatever. But like I said, there was a video that started this whole idea for me tonight, and this is what we're going to review right now. Gentleman named Cam Jones wants to help us unlearn misogyny.
Intellectuals who speak.
So, you know, of course, I took that personally, right?
The black leaders and intellectuals whose speeches and quotes fly across social media. From the OGs like Martin and Malcolm, modern influencers fashioning themselves as leaders, the womanizers running podcasts, they all have misogyny in common. Any devout member of the NOI, just as an example, and by extension, any other Abrahamic religion or offshoot of those religions, is a perpetrator and or victim of misogyny. The hundreds of sects of Christianity, Islam, Judaism, doesn't matter. I know a lot of y'all are already leaving comments and protests, but pump the brakes and hear me out. Criticizing one aspect of the broad array of personality traits, perspectives, knowledge, and skills possessed by our cultural heroes doesn't invalidate everything they've ever done. We can and will learn things from them. It's just worth taking a look at, though. I'm still on my journey out of misogyny as we speak, so we're learning together.
He's on his journey out of misogyny. So you're like you're off the path now. You're trying to find your way away from misogyny. Into what though? Like once you stop doing misogyny, what are you gonna do? Like cocaine?
Anybody who's tempted to dismiss this as the rant of a male feminist, you're right. You know what's on my side though? The facts.
So he is trying to tell us that male feminism is not only morally, but factually correct. He thinks he has facts on his side, which is why we're here to watch this video.
I hope I don't have to spell this out, but breaking down the concepts of misogyny and patriarchy needs to happen before I can move into any political discussions. Both concepts form the foundation of America's social hierarchy, which in turn built our government. Patriarchy gets thrown around a lot in internet discourse, so I'll probably need to give it a definition before we dive deeper. It's defined as, quote, a social, legal, and political system where men hold primary power, dominating roles in political leadership, moral authority, social privilege.
Right away, let's start at primary power. What is the definition of primary power? Are you saying that men dominate political leadership? Which is arguable. There are more men who are elected officials, but there are more women who vote for these men. The biggest political voting bloc is the female vote on either side. So I don't know if you can say that men just hold primary power based on political leadership. Men do not have moral authority at all, nor do men have social privilege. Control of property? No.
And control of property. It structures society to prioritize male perspectives, resulting in the oppression or systemic inequality of women. Misogyny is a byproduct and necessary component of patriarchy. I'll be defining that later. Let me prove the point I made in the intro about America's dominant religion. Honestly, if I need to prove it, you haven't been paying attention.
Now, he's calling patriarchy America's dominant religion. If only.
For the last few centuries or so. If you're really religious, you need to watch this. If you don't need to be convinced that religions are misogynistic and don't want to hear it, that's what the chapters are here for. Feel free to skip ahead. The supreme being in the universe of every Abrahamic religion is gendered as a man in their official holy books. The Bible, Quran, Torah all do it very often. The first obvious argument from Christians is God refers to himself that way in the books. God as in the Father, not the triple-decker entity y'all call the Trinity. I can't really say you're wrong, but it does make it evident that there's some influence from the authors who wrote these scriptures going on. By definition, God is outside of creation, so why would they use a pronoun at all? Many Christians, Jews, and Muslims would counter by saying it was just a sign of the times, which makes my point forming. Others might say, look, Semitic languages kind of default to a male pronoun, and that even though it's in the books, it's just a grammatical convenience. Again, do you hear what you're saying? I understand that it wouldn't be as easy to convert new believers if you referred to God as an it, but all religious experts agree God has no gender.
That is true in a grand cosmological sense. There's no need for gender at that level of high existence, I would argue. But why is it that God being a male is the most successful expression of religion? I don't know if you can just throw that away because you don't like God being a man. There's a reason why the masculine presentation of God is the most dominant presentation. It's the most widely spread.
On top of the gendered language, all three religious texts have extremely regressive laws and make clearly misogynistic statements regarding heterosexual relationship dynamics too. I'm going to pick on Christianity because that was the bane of my childhood, but feel free to drop examples from your own religion in the comments. In the Christian Bible, wives are listed alongside a man's property, servants, and livestock as things that shouldn't be coveted in the 10 Commandments. Most importantly, don't covet that ass. The 22nd chapter of Deuteronomy is a gold mine, though. By the way, I'm not reading the King James texts on screen, but I'll put them here so y'all can't say I'm misinterpreting them. Ironically, I have to give a trigger warning for abuse and assault before discussing the Bible. Skip here if you don't want to take that in right now. Good? All right. If a man rapes a woman who is not engaged, he must pay her father 50 shekels of silver and marry her for life with no right to divorce. If a woman intervenes in a fight between her husband and another man by grabbing the assailant's genitals, you shall cut off her hand. Show her no pity. Bro.
Deuteronomy was based low-key. I didn't realize Deuteronomy was that based. I need to go dust off the good book.
Taketh him by the secrets is the most hilarious way to say grab his balls. The Bible got jokes. If a husband accuses his new wife of not being a virgin, her parents must produce evidence, aka the marriage bedsheet. If not, she is to be stoned to death at her father's door.
Breach of contract. All right. We didn't pay for no hoes. I didn't trade you all these goats and all these camels for a used up chick. Nope. I wanted a fresh one. Breach of contract, nigga. Rules are rules.
Hey, Cam, that's just the Old Testament. It got better later. First off, if your God has no beginning or end, they don't get to improve over time. Only humans get to be imperfect and learn life lessons. Y'all's words, not mine. Also, it absolutely didn't get better. I'm going to read this one in Old English so you can really feel the gravity of it. Moses was leading the children of Israel against the Midianites, right? Here's what he told them after they won. I'm skipping verse 17 because it's unrelated, but I'll put it on screen so you can see I'm not changing the context of it. And Moses said unto them, have ye saved all the women alive? Now, therefore, kill every male among the little ones, and kill every woman that hath known man by lying with him. So,
yeah, God was going crazy in the Old Testament. Old Testament God was on something. By the time New Testament came around, like God was a little bit late. He was a little bit older. He's seen a lot. He's been through a lot with his people. You know, he was a single dad at that point. Old Testament God was going ham. You know, by the time he settled down and had a kid and all that, he was like, you know what? I'm I'm gonna try not to like smite all of you little retarded mugs at this. Like he was really less smitey by the time the New Testament came around. It's because he was a single dad. Having a kid tends to make you a little bit you think about the bigger picture once you start having kids or whatever.
Women who've had sex. But all the women children that have not known a man by lying with him, keep alive for yourselves. Women children. This book is evil. The New Testament doesn't really improve that much. This one's from your boy Timothy. I do not permit a woman to teach or to assume authority over a man. She must be quiet.
Shut up, bitch.
This would be a good place for the fictional story about Eve dooming mankind forever. It always has to be a woman's fault. I'm going to wrap this section up with an example from white Jesus. Yes, he was very progressive for the time and did street magic, among other things. But again, he was the son of perfection and was supposed to be the example of perfection, right? If perfection can be crucified, the rest of y'all are forgiven as long as you accept him, etc. He stated that a man who divorces his wife, except for sexual immorality, makes her commit adultery. And marrying a divorced woman is also adultery. So the burden of being unmarried and getting into the wrong kind of relationship falls on the woman. Say it with me. White Jesus is a misogynist. Exactly. The breakdown I just did for Christianity applies to most versions of religion in the West, because the West is misogynistic, and these religions give them a foolproof playbook to reinforce that misogyny generation after generation. America is built on Christianity, originally Protestantism, but that's obviously expanded since then. It's built into our government to the point where a Bible is used to swear in every government official, more important than the manager of your local post office. It's the reason over 9 states banned abortion with 0 exceptions, including if you've been sexually assaulted. That shit is evil, and so is the Bible.
Why you're punishing the baby, though? Who did the baby assault? Like, the baby didn't do nothing to nobody. Baby just woke up here like, damn, son, how's this my fault? That's what the baby want to know. Why is this my fault?
Current president virulently and famously hates women. He was found liable for, as I've mentioned before. He insults them on international broadcasts casually, and it's something his supporters like by every indication. This is low-hanging fruit, though. Everybody knows Trump is a sociopath. Let's pivot to my misogyny. From this point forward, it's much more anecdotal.
Oh, he was a bad boy. And notice again, and talking about misogyny or patriarchy, you have to bring up your supreme evil deity, your supreme evil deity, right? It's like the devil in your religious construct, which is the white men. And who is the king of evil white men at this moment? Donald J. Trump. Donald J. Trump is effectively king of the white devils as far as these people are concerned.
Somebody had to do it. I am the chosen one. Somebody had to do it.
I've been challenging myself on this for over a decade now, from my music to the inadvertent ways I show up in relationships. I've always thought that because I actively advocate for women and femme-presenting people in general, haven't called them offensive terms in my music.
Oh, wait. Now, Carmen, I know you picked up on a trigger word he must have used. Not even a trigger word. Trigger word is a bad phrase. It's more like a tell. There are words that just let you know what you're dealing with. And you must have picked up on another word a few minutes ago, because now when he's saying, I have always spoken up for women and femme-presenting people.
To the inadvertent ways I show up in relationships. I've always thought that because I actively advocate for women and femme-presenting people in general.
Femme-presenting people sounds like a nigga in a dress, y'all.
Yeah, what are they coming to church doing? Being gay!
God damn it. How come every time these niggas start breaking off the path to masculinity and patriarchy, they stumble into some gay shit? Every time.
Haven't called them offensive terms in my music and strive to see them as equals in my everyday life, that it doesn't make me sexist or a misogynist. And it's just not true. Misogyny is the dislike of, contempt for, or ingrained prejudice against women. I'm pretty confident that I've conquered the first two. But there's a lot of ingrained prejudice that men like me carry around with us every day.
Instead of blaming all the other niggas, instead of blaming the white man, you should tell us how you personally hate women. Because you're the misogyny that you hate. You are the misogyny that you're complaining to us about. Shout out to Miss Cantrell with the 199. She says it's all Trump's fault. That's what they want us to believe. Trump is the king of the white devils, and it's all his fault, y'all.
These people are crazy. I'm telling you, they're crazy.
We don't think it's there, but women have told me that it is. In my case, I can point to how irritated I got when some of my exes would challenge me on things that I didn't think they had the right to call me out on. Things like contradictions between what I claim publicly and what I do in private, even when it doesn't.
Oh, so you was a phony nigga. You were being phony, and now you done sound like transgender Jesus or whatever, and you want to repent for your previous phoniness towards women. Okay. Sounds very familiar. I keep hearing this life arc. You know, I used to be out there breaking hearts, running through panties, and now I'm a better man. I'm such a better man. I'm better than you niggas.
When some of my exes would challenge me on things that I didn't think they had the right to call me out on. Things like contradictions between what I claim publicly and what I do in private, even when it doesn't affect our relationship. I complained about the questions they'd ask me because I don't want that kind of criticism at home. If it affects you, sure, call me out, but I don't want to hear it when it doesn't hurt you. That's misogyny, because not only am I overlooking the ways it impacts her half the time, but if the roles were reversed, I'd absolutely point it out to her. If it was a friend of mine pointed it out to me, I probably wouldn't react the same way. That misogyny is rooted in the desire to date someone who doesn't push me like that, a woman who's my peace. The whole concept of us wanting women to be our peace is rooted in us expecting them to shut up about their problems, listen to ours, take care of us, etc.
Wow. Nigga can't even ask for peace no more. Men can't even ask for peace anymore. We done fell so far that you wanting peace in your life makes you the bad guy. You know what that reminds me of? Let's take a quick break, because niggas be wanting peace badly. And the minute you go try to get a little bit of peace, not even a piece of ass, like peace of quiet, peace and quiet, peace of mind. I just want to relax. I just need a minute to myself, goddammit. Can I have a minute to myself?
I'm sitting here sick and worried. And this man is sitting in this car. Really? 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 Seriously? Seriously? Why are you sleeping in the car?
Huh?
Why are you sleeping in the car?
I need some rest.
So why wouldn't you come inside?
Because I can't rest in there.
Is your life that terrible that you need to be in the car? Is your life like that difficult? Why don't you come inside? For an hour you've been out here? You've been out here for an hour?
A whole hour.
I just need to rest.
Do you want me to bring you something?
Peace and quiet.
Come inside, baby.
No.
Come on.
No. Just close the door.
His wife asks, "Can I bring you something?" And he says, "Peace and quiet." She doesn't know what to do with that. How do I give him peace and quiet? Is there like a recipe for that shit? She about to go and Google peace and quiet. She about to watch a YouTube video. How do I give my man peace and quiet? I bet you there's like a whole bunch of easy videos. There's like a whole TikTok genre. You about to look up peace and quiet, figure that shit out. You about to learn that shit online, how to give your man peace and quiet. Shout out to We Geek with the 5-ball. In order to join the feminist movement, you have to sacrifice your barber and your cheeks. Oh my God. I've heard that though. I've heard that.
But I want to address this simping allegation. Do I simp for black women? Yes. I love black women. I don't like y'all niggas. This is an easy decision to make. Sorry.
Why are you sleeping in the car?
I need some rest.
So why wouldn't you come inside?
Because I can't rest in there.
Is your life that terrible that you need to be in the car? Is your life like that difficult? Why don't you come inside? For an hour you've been out here? You've been out here for an hour?
It looks like it. I just need to rest.
Do you want me to bring you something?
Peace and quiet.
Come inside, baby.
No.
Come on.
No. Just close the door, please. Just close the door.
Well, I'm gonna come and sit next to you.
No.
That nigga was about to cry. He's like, no. I asked you for one easy thing, and you're gonna do literally the opposite. Like on purpose, you're gonna do the opposite. He's, no. God, you were better off not even coming home. You know what he's gonna do next time? Next time he's gonna park his car like down the block, around the corner, slightly out of view of the house, like nowhere you can see him from the front porch. And he's just gonna sit there, parked on the street like a creep, and he's gonna lay his seat back, and he's gonna take a nap around the corner from the house because he doesn't want to stay at the job. They might try to get more work out of him. He has to physically leave the job. So he's gonna come home where it's safe. You know, you feel comfortable and relaxed in your neighborhood or whatever. He's gonna park around the corner, and then he's gonna get his hour of peace where she can't find him. And then she's gonna be calling him like, where did he go? Why he not picking up the phone? What happened to him? Why are you acting like that? Because you want peace in your life.
And who's my peace? The whole concept of us wanting women to be our peace is rooted in us expecting them to shut up about their problems, listen to ours, take care of us, etc.
And shout out to Miss Cantrell, longtime member. Leaving y'all alone is a learned skill for us. Yeah, how about that? Leaving men alone. You know what I realized too about like just the nature of the male-female dynamic? And this is not even taking it to like a bitter extreme, but I've tasted the bitter extreme. Don't get me wrong, but I just realized in general, and this probably goes both ways too if you're in a healthy relationship, honestly, but like you are there to be bothered in a certain kind of way, if that makes sense to you. Like in her like mischievous, when she's at her most mischievous, when she's at her most devious, right? And this is what I mean about the bitter extreme, but she kind of looks at it as her right to bring you some level of discomfort or misery, right? And on the low end, it's not really that big a deal, you know, just teasing and playfulness and all that. On the bitter end, it's like, I own you, nigga. And that's where it starts to get really, really, really uncomfortable. But as a general rule, and again, like I said, this kind of does go both ways a little bit. But as a general rule, she does kind of look at it as her right to kind of bother you a little bit. Like, out of all the people in the world, I can disturb your peace and not have to pay a real cost for it. Like, think about it. When you're like, as a dude, especially like when you're, I don't have a happy face. I think I've been told a lot. I always look angry or whatever. And so I generally notice people don't always come up to me in public and just tell me random things. People don't always just strike up stupid things with me in public, right? Because I realize most people actually don't want to bother guys out in the world, right? Especially if you look some type of way, right? So there's levels to that. So I realize that when it's your woman, though, she kind of understands intuitively that I can bother you in a way that no other human being alive is allowed to bother you, and you're not going to react to me. Whereas like with anybody else, you never know. A stranger, you know, is a mixed bag. I have no idea how this person's going to react if I sneak up on him and tickle him, put my little pinky finger in his ear or something like that, right? But your girlfriend, she will jam her middle finger all the way down your ear and be like, I'm just a girl, babe. And it's like, you fucking bitch. You be mad even a little bit, but you got to let it go. You got to let it go. That's the one thing I realized. Women can do that. Now, men, we do that in other ways, but it's not as, I don't know, women almost want to break you down a little bit. Like, I don't think men quite do that to women. Men, for the most part, it's like a smack on the ass or whatever. It's not quite the same.
It took me a long time to realize I was doing this because I actively seek out ambitious women with a smart mouth like mine. I enjoy women being witty and at my level of intellect. What I didn't enjoy was an actual equal, someone who can call me out on my shortcomings and isn't afraid to. This is a clear flaw in my psyche that I'm actively working through. And that's just my misogyny. To the hetero men who identify with your birth gender, the ones who look up to me.
Bro, this whole conversation is transcoded. You know what? It's to be expected, honestly. We're establishing a pattern here. This nigga got the pirate earring. This nigga's a butt pirate. No, this whole conversation is transcoded.
Or admire my work, as many of you have reached out to me and said. Yours likely looks completely different from mine, but they have some similar DNA. It's a wide spectrum, but no matter where you are on it, the collective effect of all that internalized hate and prejudice harms women in our society. The expectation for them to do all the labor at home while also having jobs that they aren't adequately compensated for. Our government stripping their reproductive rights in an effort to force them into reproducing. Calling gender roles traditional when you really mean abusive and antiquated. Fathers being disappointed at gender reveals when it's a girl. So
why can't you want a thing? Some dudes actually want a daughter. Some women want a boy. Why is that wrong in either way? It's not like you can really pick, you know, you can just want. Hell, I wanted a boy all 3 times, you know? Shooting 1 for 3. You just get what you get. You got to roll with it.
Supporting musicians and athletes who beat on or verbally abuse women. There's so many ways it can manifest in real life. Let go of Chris Brown. Stop idolizing Future and caping for Tory. Stop watching the NFL. Stop bothering women who don't want you. It'll never happen, but I gotta.
You should actually do all those things. I ain't gonna lie.
Ways it can manifest in real life. Let go of Chris Brown. Stop idolizing Future and caping for Tory. Stop watching the NFL.
You have to do all those things, but for completely different reasons than what he's thinking about. You can't be like rappers. Tory Lanez, low-key, he got himself in jail. You ain't want to tell on the bitch. That's your fault. Tory Lanez is in jail right now because he didn't want to snitch on Meg Thee Stallion. That is 100% skill issue. I'm just saying, you got to move on. Don't watch the NFL because I don't like watching millionaires chase balls around. That's just not a thing I do anymore.
Stop bothering women who don't want you. It'll never happen, but
and stop bothering women who don't want you. All these things are actually good advice individually.
I gotta throw those out there. And of course, some of this applies to women too. They've internalized all the patriarchy we've thrown at them to the point where they participate and reinforce it. I'll close this out by addressing the male red pillars. You don't deserve a woman. I don't deserve anybody. The resentment that a lot of red pill adherents feel stems from the feeling that something's being done to them. Like there's this injustice that isn't being addressed properly. The injustice is that we, as men, were given this toxic, false idea of what masculinity is from the people and system that raised us. Not even saying they intended to do so all the time.
I wish they would define exactly what is the toxic well, no, you know what? He's actually done some definition. You know, all masculinity that isn't like gender queer and diverse is basically toxic. Any masculinity that is not inclusive of multiple expressions of gender and sexuality is toxic effectively. Shout out to Bluff City Nerd with the fireball. He said, I reacted to this video this morning. You're talking about that clip I just played. All bro wanted was peace and quiet. His wife doesn't understand the mission. Listen, you can add wanting peace add that to the list of things that make men wrong. I didn't realize wanting peace and quiet was a bad thing now.
Can a nigga live? Can a nigga live? Please.
But shout out to Bluff City. Appreciate y'all supporting the show, man. I'm going to drop the link in a little bit, y'all. Support the panel, y'all. We're going to open up the discussion in a little bit.
Or that our parents are bad. The myth that men don't have masculinity and femininity inside them. The myth that expressing nurturing behaviors as a man isn't acceptable. And the myth that toughness or bluntness are the most admirable qualities of a man are tearing us apart. And we got
toughness and bluntness are among the most admirable qualities in men. Generally speaking, men who can endure trauma, men who can endure misfortune, discomfort, those are that's a quality that you would like in the men around you. Men who say what they think, men who don't use weasel words, men who don't feminize their own language. Also qualities you would want in the men that you keep around you.
intended to do so all the time, or that our parents are bad. The myth that men don't have masculinity and femininity inside them, the myth that expressing nurturing behaviors as a man isn't acceptable, and the myth that toughness or bluntness are the most admirable qualities of a man are tearing us apart. And we got to start being man enough to express the other aspects of our humanity in public with pride. I don't know about y'all, but
ain't you niggas man enough to cry in front of your woman? I dare you to be man enough to cry in front of your bitch right now. Prove to her, prove how manly you are and go cry in front of your woman. You're not manly until you cried in front of your bitch. Like, go watch the soap operas and wait until Jenny breaks up with her boyfriend Craig because he's been cheating on her with that nurse from the hospital. Wait until that part comes on and you both start crying, and then you see how that goes for you. You got to be man enough to cry in front of your woman when things happen in life.
But I like to cuddle a lot.
Whoa, he said I like to cuddle a lot. You know, I hate hearing niggas say shit like that. I really hate, because, you know, don't get me wrong. Like, as a man who likes women, there is something very enjoyable about full body contact with an adult female, right? Laying next to a woman in bed feels good, right? But I don't think I will ever get on a podcast and say unironically, I like to cuddle. Y'all not supposed to know these things about a nigga.
These of a man are tearing us apart, and we got to start being man enough to express the other aspects of our humanity in public with pride. I don't know about y'all, but I like to cuddle a lot. It's like my favorite thing.
Like I said, I like to cuddle a lot. That's how I know you a bitch ass nigga, because my arm be getting tired and shit. My arm be going, it be falling asleep. I'd be like, no, we gotta move. I gotta sit up. We can't just be doing this forever and ever and ever. My leg over here going numb and shit. This nigga talking about I like to cuddle a lot. This nigga over here like, hold me, babe.
And the myth that toughness or bluntness are the most admirable qualities of a man are tearing us apart, and we got to start being man enough to express the other aspects of our humanity in public with pride. I don't know about y'all, but I like to cuddle a lot. It's like my favorite thing. I like holding hands. I need more friends, and I'm actively working on it.
This nigga lonely too. Oh man. How you like to cuddle and you lonely? This nigga giving off all kind of like awkward vibes right now, bro. I'm getting a lot of awkward vibes. The nigga cuddle, the nigga lonely, the nigga want friends. That nigga gay, nigga gay, nigga gay, nigga gay, nigga gay, nigga gay. Bro said anime body pillow energy. I didn't even know you could get an anime body pillow. Is that a thing for people who are lonely and don't have enough friends? I couldn't imagine. Like, how tall is it? It's like 5 feet tall. Because I know Asians aren't all that tall anyway. How tall is your anime cuddle pillow anyway?
And I'm going to start telling my close male friends I love them more often.
Don't start doing that. You're only allowed to say these things on like momentous occasions. You can't just call your bros up randomly, be like, hey, yo, I love you, my bro. My brother. I love you, my nigga. Like, these things just don't work that way. You know how your male homies know that you love them? Because you pick the phone up when they call. That's how men understand that, oh, all right, we still cool. We still good. We don't have to write letters to our bros. Just wanted you to know I was thinking about you today, bro. Tell you, every time these dudes start moving off the path of patriarchy, it starts to get a little bit sus out there, man.
Are the most admirable qualities of a man are tearing us apart, and we got to start being man enough to express the other aspects of our humanity in public with pride. I don't know about y'all, but I like to cuddle a lot. It's like my favorite thing.
And why does unlearning misogyny also equal to I gotta tell my homie I love him. Help me out with that one.
How do it equivalate?
All right, it's one thing that, all right, I don't hate women, right? Because that's what misogyny is objectively. That's the definition, right? So in order to not hate women, I have to be like a little bit like gay. Not like full on gay, not like, penetration gay, just like physical contact gay. Like, what are you even on about?
With pride. I don't know about y'all, but I like to cuddle a lot. It's like my favorite thing. I like holding hands. I need more friends, and I'm actively working on it. And I'm going to start telling my close male friends I love them more often, because I do, at least a couple of y'all. Restless, angry, isolated men are the reason we got Trump.
Restless, angry, isolated men used to be the guys we send off to fight wars. We have maybe an overabundance of men that we would have otherwise found a job for. Things are just out of whack on a grand societal level.
Twice. I'm attempting to use the truth to deprogram even one person that's watching this. I'm not the behavior police, just pointing out some things we got to root out if we ever want to move forward together. That's what progressivism is supposed to be at the end of the day. My upbringing and parenting made me a tough person, and there's benefits to being a tough person.
No, notice the political overlapping. He's a progressive. And I always wonder, progressing toward what exactly? What are you moving toward? Like, and I mean, I hate to say, but it looks like you're moving toward a gender fluid utopia. Like your utopia, your heaven on earth before we die is a gender fluid, unmasculine thing.
Right? But like, why do I have to be tough? Why does a man have to be tough? What war am I fighting? And yeah,
because life itself is a struggle. That's why you have to be tough, because physical existence in and of itself is a struggle. I breathe, therefore I struggle. I am, therefore I struggle. Life itself is a struggle, and struggle builds strength and endurance and, quote, toughness.
Fits to being a tough person, right? But like, why do I have to be tough? Why does a man have to be tough? What war am I fighting? And yeah, being a black man in America requires a certain amount of toughness.
Our war is an internal war. Our great war. I'm about to quote Fight Club now. This nigga got me about to quote Fight Club on him, because he doesn't understand what war he's fighting. He doesn't have a reason for being. And this is why I actually love the movie Fight Club, because it directly tapped into that modern nihilism. And I think him, especially being a type of a black progressive, there is a nihilism baked into like modern liberal left-wing culture, because it is devoid of God, and therefore it's devoid of true beauty. And you can't really separate the two concepts. This is why they struggle with ideas like patriarchy and femininity and whatnot, because at the heart of their worldview is a nihilism, because they have no real mission that they see themselves a part of. And actually, they do have a mission. Let me not say that. Their nihilism is mission-based. It's a mission-oriented nihilism, but nihilism is civilizationally destructive, right? So they are on a mission to destroy civilization, which is why you need a positive mission. You need your own great struggle.
He has us chasing cars and clothes, working jobs we hate so we can buy shit we don't need. We're the middle children of history, man. No purpose or place. We have no Great War, no Great Depression.
We have no Great War, no Great Depression. And I think this also very much applies. Like I said, the Black progressive, there's a nihilism baked into like modern Black culture because we've kind of moved away from a broad religious Christian spirituality, theology, really. And you need something like that to carry you over in between the times where there is a Great Depression, a Great War. And this is why a lot of Black people have to constantly relive the civil rights era, because that was the last time Black folk felt themselves in a great struggle, in a great war of some type. And having great struggle gives you purpose and direction, gives you a sense of being. It might even help you contemplate the divine. Yet modern progressivism can't really give you that. And so it's just layer after layer of emptiness.
Our Great War is a spiritual war. Our Great Depression is our lives. We've all been raised on television to believe that one day we'd all be millionaires and movie gods and rock stars, but we won't. We're slowly learning that fact. And we're very, very pissed off.
Too, but toughness looks like a lot of things. I would argue that women are tougher than us in a lot of ways, especially physically. If you're new here, this is my series.
I don't think women can ever make a Fight Club movie. I think there's something about the nature of the movie Fight Club and the deep philosophical pondering of it all that it would almost implode the very nature of the movie. That it would be hard to get any type of messaging across. It would be hard to really create any effective symbolism. I don't think women are built to Fight Club. That's not how women get close to self. Shout out to Freeman's Journal member for 9 months. He says, I'm gatekeeping everything I possibly can against. You have to kind of draw a line. You have to actually draw a protective fencing around your especially in the modern world, like your little home family culture, all these things that you have to like, all the things that you hold dear, you really do have to hold them away from the modern world. And I've been dropping the link in the chat, by the way. Appreciate you guys' support. Please support the panel. If you want to come up and have a conversation about Black people versus the patriarchy, misogyny, all these things, please feel free to hit the link. But you definitely do have to build a nice wall around your patriarchal norms that you kind of establish for yourself. And if you don't protect it, if you don't if you don't tend the garden, the weeds will grow and the rabbits will break in, all the pests will come in and destroy the garden.
Makes men gay in the worst. Patriarchy makes men gay in the worst sort of way, because it's not boys kissing, swords touching gay. It's very homoerotic, does my boyfriend think my girlfriend's hot sort of gay. And that's because the second men were guaranteed.
And again, here we are again. Every time you break away from the patriarchy, you stumble into some gay shit. I don't make the rules. I just observe and report, y'all. I'm trying to tell you.
Patriarchy makes men gay in the worst sort of way, because it's not boys kissing, swords touching gay. It's very homoerotic, does my boyfriend think my girlfriend's hot sort of gay. And that's because the second men were guaranteed women.
Does my what think my what's what?
Look at this thing.
What's going on, Freeman?
Hey, what's going on, dude? I mean, look at this thing.
Yeah, this is a hell of a thing, isn't it?
Ugh. Just sausage fingered up, just touch starved. Just gonna be a problem to everyone and everything.
I came across a video recently, and I might make some content on it. I need to make a video, but They were talking about the black female unemployment crisis, if you want to call it that. And one of the women, I saved her video. She was basically saying one of the reasons why black women are being fired is because nobody wants to deal with a lawsuit coming from you broads. And you look like the exact type of chick who would bring a lawsuit against the company. You would have some type of discrimination lawsuit, sexism. Some guy was staring at my boobies on the elevator, something.
See, this all pulls back into Thomas Sowell was right. The whole affirmative action thing made it hard to hire blacks, right? Because if you got to fire them, then they're gonna sue. So you had an obvious bias for competent blacks, right? Blacks that were obviously competent, boom, right? You were in there, right? And then if you didn't, right, it was hard to hire. Like, I can't take a chance on this guy to come on the job, get the skills, and be have good output. Because if I get rid of him, it's going to be a problem. See, that's why competent blacks had to end up being the HNIC, right? That put a hard, like affirmative action put a hindrance on competent blacks to sit there and be this liaison for people that just had to fill a quota.
And if you've ever been in a hiring or managerial position at all, and this is a across the board human phenomenon, it varies with race, but it's a general truism with everybody. You run through the competent people fairly quickly. That's just the nature of the beast when it comes to like hiring and talent and whatnot. There are only so many competent people. Talent is actually rare, believe it or not. And so once you kind of tapped out all those people, you got the rest, and that's where the problem lies.
Yeah, God, the rest is such low quality. And I said this on Twitter. I was like, they were talking about unique black names, and I said, look, I used to hire for entry level position, and like 90% of the applicants were black. I hired Chris's and Lisa's and Rebecca's and had no issues. The one chick I hired that was like a Lasha Kwanda was always a problem.
Oh my God.
Right.
Strong
Always
Christian names. I'm trying to tell you, get strong Christian name. If you're not gonna go to the strong Christian name, some type of actual like traditional foreign name, Johann or something like that. Don't be coming up with some obviously ghetto-fied name. It just doesn't translate well on paper.
Oh, and look, no more Bradens or Aidens or Jadens.
Well, that's a sad thing, I think, too, but that's not as bad, though. I think that's like that's almost like the white version of a LaQuandrisha or some shit like that.
Bro, it is. Trust me. Every other dude on the west coast of Florida is named Braden. Like,
Jesus. Josh, what's going on, man? Welcome to the show. Let me get you in here before I finish the clip, man. What's up?
Man, this is kind of ridiculous because it's a definitional problem.
Meaning?
All right, so the concept of matriarchy is actually a dominant. It's a dominant function within family culture within the world. Most cultures are matriarchal. There are very few cultures that are actually even patriarchal, and worse, even within those cultures, the vast majority of them are not.
I think you're right. We're having a definitional issue, because I do want to push back before you go too deep off this point. I think what we're dealing with here is the reality of women. Everywhere you go, women effectively have the same networks, right? Which is within the male side of things, there may be an official order, like, the chief, the father, brothers, that kind of deal. But between all the men, that's where the women lie. And the women can exert influence. The women can kind of create situations and whatnot and apply pressures in their own ways. And I think you're describing just women are not really quiet and incompetent, even under the guise of patriarchy. And that's kind of what I think we were calling that matriarchy, but I just think that's women, bro.
I think this is kind of like red pill arguing points. Kind of like bled over into like a cultural conflict is really what I think this boils down to.
Right. Because I think matriarchy, and even when we say like Black America is a matriarchy, even that's a stretching of the definitional term, because it's not an official codified thing. It's more of a social phenomenon. I think it's closer to the definition than what we just sort of laid out, though. But Freeman, you're about to say something?
I mean, it's a de facto matriarchy. You're not.
Okay.
You don't have all these black women as mayors of large cities. Not just the mayor, the police chief, right? The fire captain. You know, it's de facto matriarchy.
Well, I would argue more again de facto matriarchy in the sense that, like with Josh, when you're talking about some of these other rigid patriarchal structures where, you know, even under that system, women have some leeway and latitude to do things and make things happen for themselves. I think there is an acceptance that men have a natural place in that culture, in that environment. Whereas in Black America, there is no natural place for a man. Like, and that's why I think it falls off. Like, there is no natural male authority at all in Black America.
Right, but the men don't want it either.
Well, that's a thing I really hate to fucking argue with. But like, I wish I could argue and say no, they're just dying to be patriarchs. But I've played too much content proving it wrong.
I personally think the entire conversation is kind of, it's a marketing ploy, right? Like, so example, within the Black community, they would be like, well, if you're not running your household, you know, you're basically like a bitch, right? Like it's an attack on the person kind of concept. Now, the worst part about that is not historically, that isn't the case anyways. However, right, like there's this weird grift going on, like you ought to be this way or you ought to be that way. However, within the Black community, there seems to be a conflict between like who's like, are you American or are you African American? Whatever the hell that bullshit is.
Well, that's a whole other conflict, but yeah.
Right. But that's the thing. They're conflating all of this stuff in together. There's all these like little weird internal fights, and they're using these concepts as a talking point for it.
Well, I think in a lot of ways, and it's interesting that you're kind of here as a de facto representation, but in a lot of ways, they're just attacking the idea of whiteness and white men. They're they're linking white people and patriarchy in a negative way, in a permanently negative way. There's almost no like positive description of white people and patriarchy. So it's like they're attacking.
It's always going to be that way. Whatever's on top, everybody underneath them, it's always going to point the finger and blame at. Oh, the top 1%, they got too much fucking money, right? Like they're always going to be a thing. If it's the concept of, well, so in the case of like patriarchy or matriarchy, right? Like you first have to have family to even do that, right? So they're thrashing those type of people, right? Which are still a minority group. Successful marriages are by definition a minority. So, and they're also part of an economical class, right? People just going to naturally attack them because they are kind of deemed as a success within the community or within population.
Well, I mean, that's true, but it's extraordinarily exacerbated among Blacks. Yeah. Because they have the lowest marriage, right? The lowest achievement, right? And when you say you're always going to attack the top 1%, right? Mm-hmm. But Black culture does not see itself as even possibly participating in that.
They don't see themselves like as participants within the. Now here's the differentiation, right? I'm not talking about like Black people within Africa or Black people in Europe. I'm just talking about Black people within the United States. They don't see themselves as like part of an economical class.
No.
Damn.
Nope. I mean, when I tell
generally no, Josh. Yeah.
No, when I tell other Black people that 20% of Black households are over $100,000, it's like they got hit with a bolt of lightning.
Fuck right? Yes.
Well,
Fuck
not
yes.
only that, it's almost an ideologically, Black folk are resistant to that very idea, because once you start to separate by class, now you almost start to link these people to whiteness or whatever. Like as soon as you start to become more successful, this is where like the stuff like respectability politics and all that comes in. It's like you move away from traditional quote Black behaviors, and so you start to get labeled as effectively white. It's a whole crazy phenomenon, but it basically happens that way.
Yeah, Black people are suspicious of Black people who are successful. That's why you see so many like successful Black people in entertainment and whatnot appeal to ghetto Blacks.
Oh,
right. They have to cosplay as ghetto to kind of keep that identity,
to maintain that identity, that authenticity.
Get rid of the entertainment part, right? Because that's always like grift. That's just marketing in general, anyways, right? I'm talking about like here, the example, like the amount of people that effectively make 100, or the family unit making $100,000 a year is actually quite easy within the United States. Like if you have two people that make $50,000 a year, congratulations, your family household income is now 100K, right? Like this isn't.
But
this
they have
isn't
to
difficult.
be married, Josh. They have to be married. That's
Right.
the difficult part.
Oh yeah, okay. See, and now we go into the argument of like, the patriarchy versus matriarchy, where it's really just basically a battle of who's in charge.
And stopped having to perform for us. They started performing for each other. And that's why the most patriarchal societies are also the gayest, and not just gay, but homoerotic gay, which is.
Now, I pointed this out the other day. Well, when I was first talking to Angry Man and I'm on that panel, I'm probably going to bring that back up in a second too. But I was over there arguing with Angry Man the other day. I kind of got the impression like you keep attacking white patriarchy as like this restrictive, oppressive, violent type of thing. And I'm like, I swear to God, you guys sound like you're talking about Muslims. And now here, where she's talking about like the most patriarchal, the most violent, the most restrictive patriarchy is also a little gay. I'm like, you're still talking about the damn Muslims. I swear to God, that's what's happening. People don't really like to make that association, but I promise you, there's a lot going on. To be fair,
there's a little truth into that, right? So, like, if it's the case that you're effectively laying claim that Western and dominant, we'll call it oppression, right? Just for the sake of being fair to it. And you're part of that economical class by default within consumerism, or specifically within consumerism and capitalism. Your sole competition model is based on holding down your competition as much as possible. It's just our business model. By definition,
that's not what's happening between men and women, though. I mean, the government's not really. The government's kind of propping women up. Men as a group aren't really holding women down in any real way, though.
Oh, but you should be at least within the constraints
in a
of
patriarchal
business, right?
order. You would be holding women back. That's what they were complaining about the Heritage Foundation, basically saying we're going to remove some of the ability of women to live independently. We're going to cut programs. We're going to stop flooding women into the university system. Like, these are all things to like help keep men in a more economically and socially dominant position. But that's the patriarchy.
It could be, like, you could classify it that way. It could also be one industry competing with another industry. Well, like the educational field. Believe it or not, the tech field is trying to dominate over the educational field. They might be doing it. I don't know how successful they are, but they're absolutely attacking the educational field. So why wouldn't they go around and say, you know what, we got to get rid of all of these bitches in university, right? All they're doing is just driving up debt.
Let's put a pin in that. I'm going to come back to that. Let me finish this clip.
All right.
Man who's technically straight, but only cares about the opinions of another man. And you are only ever in a relationship with a person whose opinions you care about. So if you're fucking women, but you only care what a man thinks about you, that's homoerotic gay. And that's a result of patriarchy. That is a result of women not being able to choose and men of at least certain status being guaranteed wives and babies. So yeah, the men are in their baddie soft girl era, but the gag is they've never not been in that era.
The gaslighting from this one. The gaslighting, bro. Yo, can we make wife spankings great again? And also, why do the Monty B Dub look like the baby dinosaur from that TV show Dinosaurs from back in the day?
He does look like the baby. That's crazy.
And her mouth, I mean, she gets on these internet things and she haven't visited fences. It looked like she's been chewing on gravel and rocks all her life. And she got them little sharp little teeth that might scratch your, what's the name? So, yeah.
She does look like the baby dinosaur, though. That is wild.
Systematic oppression because they're too focused on fighting. Black men are failing to fight against systematic oppression because they're too focused on fighting against Black women. Patriarchy and white supremacy aren't just systems, they're weapons. Black women, already burdened by racism and sexism, often face an additional layer of harm from Black men who've been conditioned to uphold patriarchal ideals. This isn't a coincidence. It's a deliberate strategy designed to divide and conquer. This brings us to Law 39 of the 48 Laws of Power. stir up waters to catch fish. Patriarchy and white supremacy thrive on chaos, using Black men to control Black women, ensuring that our community remains fractured and powerless.
I know it's tiny. You probably couldn't even notice it, but there's a septum ring on this one too. This piggy's been branded.
Wouldn't it definitionally be true though, right? Wouldn't she be feeding into the narrative that she's claiming? Oh, okay. If you are representation of one side, right, and you oppose the other side, right, so you're going to call it out of, oh, well, they're just trying to divide us kind of concept, right? Except for if you're collectively, now you go right back to the family problems, right? Who's in charge in the house?
I think she's lying by saying that Black men are controlling Black women in any real way. There's just no real objective measure for that. And that's the whole disagreement between Black men and Black women. They don't want to be controlled. They refuse to be.
No, this is definitely about attention. That's the whole point. Like the battle of the sexes, right? Like to be fair, I'm an asshole, right? I love the battle of the sexes just because it pisses me off. But like the whole point of it is most people don't actually care about the other side. What's the point? Like my life's not based on another woman. So
now this one on the screen right here looks like Alf with manicure eyebrows and the so-called locks. Y'all remember I have put this on the platform before about granny glasses. Even though she ain't got them, I guarantee she might have a pair. Septum ring, natural hair, whether it be locks or afro, and different colors and all that stuff. They must be listened to. They must be walked away from. They must not be engaged with. They are the ox. They are the enemy right there. That is the liberal uniform.
Is there an expectation among the Black people within the United States? Is there some type of expectation that they're supposed to be controlling like women?
Oh, ask that question again.
Say that again.
Say that again.
So is there among American society, specifically within the United States, is there a social expectation that Black men are supposed to be controlling Black women?
No.
Yes.
No.
To a degree, yes.
Well.
To a degree.
Difference between propaganda and reality, right? Propaganda, Alice Walker, Color Purple, yes. Reality, not in the least. Like not at all.
So I guess I don't really understand the basis of her claim as to, aside from seeking attention, I don't really understand what would be the point. Although this is social media, so I would expect her to be like, pay attention to what I'm saying.
Yeah, she needs attention. She doesn't get touched. Likes have to supplant a man.
Fair. Shame Black women for being too masculine or too independent, ignoring the burden society places on us. They use these stereotypes to blame Black women for systematic issues, erasing the reality that our strength is actually a response to oppression and not a character flaw. Platforms being led by Black men are amplifying attacks on Black women by labeling us as unworthy and undesirable. These men are mocking our natural features, our choices, and our achievements, reinforcing white supremacist beauty standards and patriarchal control. Black women are the backbone of every liberation movement. Yet, Black men often benefit from our work, and then they refuse to support us in return. They expect us to fight for their rights while denying us the respect and care we deserve.
Yo, wasn't it the Black men that started the Black Panthers and the chicks just basically came in and hijacked it? I'm trying to make sure that I don't hear revisionist history right about now.
Well, that's the only history you're gonna get, bro.
Internalized anti-Blackness teaches.
Oh shit! I did not mean to do that.
Black men are failing to fight against systematic oppression and align themselves with white supremacist ideals that perpetrate harm. These behaviors are not random; they're systematic. Patriarchy and white supremacy condemn Black men to see care we deserve. Internalized anti-Blackness teaches Black men to devalue Black women, especially dark-skinned women. They adopt harmful stereotypes, pit women against each other based on complexion, and align themselves with white supremacist ideals that perpetrate harm. These behaviors are not random. They're systematic. Patriarchy and white supremacy condition Black men to see Black women's independence as a threat. Some men align with these systems out of ignorance, but others deliberately weaponize them to dominate Black women, seeing our autonomy as a challenge to their own fragile sense of power. The result, Black women are left feeling unsupported, gaslit, and devalued by the very men who should be standing beside us. This isn't just emotional harm, it's a betrayal that keeps us isolated and exhausted. Despite this, Black women remain at the forefront of liberation movements, carrying the weight of both racism and sexism while being vilified for our efforts. Our strength and independence are viewed.
You know, another thing that bothers me about this whole like left-wing progressive stand, when they say words like liberation implies that you're imprisoned, you're oppressed by something. So what is it that you need to be liberated from? And I think in particular, Black women, it's obvious they want to be liberated from Black men.
I personally think they just want to be in control. I mean, to be fair, right? It's talking your way into a position of control. It's just not really how it works in reality, right? Like you have to do something to be in control. I really think
that's
it's just
the way it
social.
is. Yeah, I think that's just, but de facto, like what if you throw off your oppression, if you're liberated, you're in control of yourself now. Which it's the same.
No, you're responsible, right?
Well, that's different. They don't want to be responsible though.
And they're failing so often at the highest level that now it's a conspiracy theory that they're being set up to fail by being elected mayor and police chief and so on. I think it's just a sign people gave up. So they're like, oh, let them have it.
Yeah, but it's been that way for like thousands of years, right? Like that's how it's always been that way among men. You go back to the 1700s, right? Like that was a thing, right? Once they gained some type of access within a society, whether it's government access, like AKA could be a leader of a group of people or something like that, they always just kind of pushed it off. Well, I didn't have a fair chance, or I didn't have that, right? It's just a woman thing. It's always been that way, though. It's a good.
And not solutions, because they expose the cracks in a system designed to oppress us all. Why do Black men work so hard to keep Black women in their place? How is this affecting
because y'all need to be
your self-worth or the view of the community? Share thoughts in the comments, call out toxic behaviors you experience, and follow for more breakdowns. Black men are failing to fight against systematic oppression.
It sounds to me like what she's talking about, like people are basically like holding me down kind of thing, is just basically people getting on social media and shit talking each other, which is fair, I think. But I mean,
when she says Black men are failing to fight against white supremacy, that is a method by which they control Black men's agency.
Bingo.
Right. It's always, you're not doing this, you're not doing that, you can't do this, you can't do that. It's always some sort of switch that they want to flip to control men's agency.
Sure.
Just saying that's what that is.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, actually. That makes a lot of sense.
I'm confused because I thought that men said that they were the leaders, had a household, that they're the ones to lead the change. But when another man says that they need to start holding themselves accountable and call out the abusive behavior of other men to support women, then all of a sudden those men say it's not their responsibility.
It's actually not. And I've gotten to the position where rhetorically, I don't even like to pick up the whole Black leadership mantle. I don't.
Me either.
My charge is this: if Black men are leaders and Black women believe in Black men being leaders, why do y'all vote so much,
bro?
Ironically, go ahead, Mister.
No, I'm gonna say ironically, that nigga Ayo got it straight right now, saying Black men are not allowed to lead. So I mean, even when we give it the so-called proverbial responsibility to lead our community, we're not able to because we have all these so-called quote unquote equal opportunists in a community size. You know what I'm saying? And remember, responsibility without authority is slavery.
Right. And the reason why I was saying like Black men being leaders is just a gaslight at this point is, like I said, women vote. Women, they organize their vote to outvote men oftentimes. And so your vote is an act of leadership unto itself. So how is it that you're engaging in acts of leadership, but you're going to look me in my face and tell me I'm the leader. And so I reject that whole framework. And I think it's just one of those things that women use to avoid accountability.
I'm also confused because the men are out here yelling free thinker, free thinker, free thinker. But the moment another man has a thought that does not match yours, i.e., he supports women and he's speaking up on the behalf of women, all of a sudden he's pandering. See, because I know that you all were not going to listen to women anyway, which is why a lot of women have been telling men, hey, they don't even see us as people. So if you are a man who is an ally to women, you're going to have to speak up on the behalf of women because them other dusty motherfuckers are not going to listen to us. So now we do have men speaking up on the behalf of women, and y'all are mad at them too. It's like you want to be able to be openly abusive to women.
And it's always the position of men having control, men having authority, de facto abuse, slavery, rape and pillage, rape and pillage.
I don't know. There might be a fair point to this. I just think it ought to be the case. So the example would be like, if let's just hypothetically say you got a woman and she's out in the street, she's behaving, some way that you oppose, right? And somebody calls her out just in a simple concept of like name calling, calls her out her name or whatever the hell it is, right? She naturally goes into the, well, why aren't you defending me, right? Not because I'm a woman, but because we have the same skin tone or some shit like that, right? There's always this concept of come help me. But we live in a society where apparently everybody's allowed to do whatever the hell they want anyways, right? So that puts the responsibility onto the self. If you want special treatment, you have to do something to obtain the special treatment. But when you absent that, all you can do is talk to other people and help them or like convince them to fight for you based off of whatever relational skin tone or whatever it is. But now the concept is she opposes that from doing it only because that it is done. If you walk down the street and see something you dislike, you should shame it. That's the whole point. The idea of like people having ideas, fine, no problem, right? But you also have to put those ideas in practice and show people, not so much talk them into it. And it's a competition.
There's this notion that like the left wing pushes forward where like, I'm not judgmental, I'm inclusive, we're diverse. But in fact, they are judging. They have a rule, they have an in group and an out group, and they enforce their borders with shame. All the things that they say that they're against, they just have a completely different power like structure that they believe in.
Yeah, we do too, or at least us on the right? And we believe in it. That's the whole point, is to shame the living fuck.
But they've talked right wing out of using shame as a weapon, as they've weaponized shame for their own purpose. You see how that works?
Right.
Magic trick.
And you're upset that other men are not also.
Isn't me? But does she look like Bullwinkle?
Because that's not following bro code.
A little bit.
That's not what the guys do. She's not going to let you hit. What the men are realizing, the ones that are allies, is that patriarchy not only affects women, but it also affects men. And the men who are allies, what they are coming across are other men who absolutely hate their fucking guts. They're coming across other men who are trying to tell them that they should not be supporters and allies of women, especially when women are talking about the abuse that they are going through. They are basically discouraged from helping other women. And you have to ask yourself, why is that? Like, what do men benefit from discouraging other men from supporting and being there for other women? You have to ask yourself, why do those men hate women so much that they are willing to discourage, to denounce, to defame other men who are trying to be supportive of women? And what's so disheartening is that you have so many.
Thing I think we should consider when watching, especially coming from women. When it's coming from men, you can just, disparage them as like some cuddlefish nigga. But with women, what I think is also happening is a level of like territorial defense. They're defending their social status and standing at every turn with the most vicious behavior possible. And so anytime men kind of come together to talk about things and they automatically accuse them of being either gay or misogynist or whatever, it's not that they believe in any of those charges, it's they're defending territory.
Well, yeah, well, see, I want to almost agree to that, except for women are a minority group within social media. strangely enough.
What do you mean a minority group within social media?
Okay, so like all of these like browbeating bullshit, all of the commentary, right? Like this mostly doesn't happen on the streets. Most people don't get into verbal altercations, even in slight disagreements within the streets, right? Like it just doesn't happen. And it's because we become violent if it really comes down to it, right? Most of what she's talking about happens on social media, and most social media platforms are dominated by males by upwards of just short of 3/4. Right. So women by
I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah,
I'm
like
having a
you,
hard time accepting that. Where's the numbers coming from on that? Because
yeah,
it would
YouTube
seem
is like
social media is heavily female populated.
no, strangely enough, like most of the stuff that the viewership, I'm not talking about the viewership, I'm talking about the stuff that's on there. Most of your viewers on YouTube, like 85% are male. There might be some weird outliers like TikTok or something like that. But TikTok's now got a marketing system where like you can actually buy stuff. They have like a TikTok marketplace, right? But most of the activity is actually within the market, not in the content creation. Believe it or not, most women are like, by the numbers, most women are not like content creators. They're just not entertaining, I guess.
Well, that is true. I can see that with my own eyes. It's mostly men doing the content creation. But I was I'm surprised at the viewership of social media itself. And outside of YouTube, is it still hold true out? Because YouTube I know is heavily male dominated, but is it true outside of YouTube?
Yeah. TikTok is a weird thing, but what they ended up doing was, because it was falling on TikTok, right? They started catering with that whole marketplace, the same thing like Facebook Marketplace, like they did that thing. That's how they brought the women in, and they mostly don't get involved with the bullshit on there. They look at like weird, I don't know, baby videos or whatever the fuck they do, right? But mostly they're involved heavily with the market, not so much any of the competition of ideas. So they're not even in the sphere to even get judged, right? Like some girl makes a comment on a video and says, well, fuck this man or fuck that thing, right? And then getting pushback. They're not even within that realm of interaction.
Too many F-bombs, Josh. Too many F-bombs. But
sorry.
I hear what you're saying. I think you're probably right. I'm just surprised at the totality of it. I expect YouTube to be heavily male.
Yeah.
But you know what? How many
it's mostly like grifting as a
women,
victim.
Josh?
Yeah, no, it's mostly grifting as a victim, right? Like I saw this girl over on this other video get abused, right? So now I'm gonna, pick up the claim of, I'm the victim too, right? Because I'm a woman.
Men who want the approval of other men, that they will stop being an ally to women. They will stop supporting women. See, it's hard to be an ally. It's hard for you all to consistently be an ally, especially when the people who you call your brother are looking at you crazy. But if you're a real ally, that shouldn't bother you. The ones that go back and forth between.
This thing about allies?
Yeah, what is that?
It's always a one-sided dealing because like there is no give and take with this allyship. Like how do I benefit being an ally to like women as a cause?
I don't know how, as a guy, right? I don't know how you can be an ally with women. It's like dealing with a different species of animal, right? Their interests aren't the same as ours, right? What's there to have an alliance over?
And this is one of the things that like I think it makes people uncomfortable, the reality of it. But I think when you really get down, this is why every like civilization, now we're kind of talking about like patriarchy and stuff. But like, this is kind of why every functioning civilization worth copying anything from, they had kind of an order for the majority of the men and the women. They had male and female roles. And I think one of the reasons for that is as a species, man has learned that if you just let women, and listen, you can't let men run amok either, but if you let women have what they want, women in particular desire things that are effectively anti-civilizational.
Yes. Generally speaking.
It makes you uncomfortable to think that
I agree.
The women around you, the women that you think are wise and charitable and kind and giving, if you really let them off the chain, they will burn everything down and laugh and giggle while it happens.
Yes.
That's the nature of the beast. And so this is why every culture has oppressed them to some degree.
Yeah. Well, again, it should be. Look, throughout all of history, most of the female leaders that ever existed. So, like, example would be like Cleopatra. Ultimately, what just led to the destruction of the Egyptian Empire, right? Done instantly. What? Because she just wanted to bang I guess a general or something like that from the Roman Empire, right? Okay, so big deal, right? But like, I get why historically we would oppose them ever being leaders. It's just, what's the point? But now the idea of self-importance would be like, what do women generate? Now, when we talk about like market revenue, right? Like, women dominate within economy, or at least domestic spending, right? So it would be, if I'm a male business owner that is involved with the retail, it would be in my own personal interest to cater to women for the sake of just basically having them as customers, just because they buy stuff, right? But you have to kind of think about the things that they consume. What importance is it? If you look at like the basic concept, the man builds the house, right? And then they have that weird claim of like the woman makes the home, right? What it means is she's the one that puts she goes out and gets the little comfy cushions on the couch, that kind of thing. Yes, it's comfortable. Yes, we enjoy it, right? But what's the level of importance that goes with it?
Well, that's like male consumption tends to be based around a little bit more practical things. Like, we'll spend money on extravagant shit, but like, again, things that tend to have more function, you know, a pickup truck, some fishing gear, hunting stuff like that. Women buy things that are just pretty.
Well, yeah. No, even like the concept of like, say, a PlayStation, right? Like, what are they, like $500 for a PS5 right now, right?
Yeah.
But the real reason that we're investing in it is because it will entertain me. I don't have to buy subscriptions, right? And it'll keep me entertained for the next 2 years.
Right. There's a practicality to that. Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out to PlayStation. I want one. I miss mine.
Supporting women, but also wanting to appease they bros, those are the ones that are pandering. Just because a man supports a woman, sees a woman, believes a woman, does not mean he's pandering. And I absolutely hate the word pandering, because you all only use it to discourage other men from becoming allies to women. And at the rate that you all are unaliving us, we need every ally we can get. What I'm hoping we get out of this is that more men become allies and less men become the raccoon whose voice, for some reason, elevated to the top. Because I blocked him many moons ago, and I was so shocked and scared to see him on my FYP. I'm hoping we have more podcasts and more creators like Dante elevate to the top instead.
I agree with her. If I honestly believe that women were capable of, I guess, grouping together and doing some major damage to our society, right? I would absolutely attack other men for trying to build alliances with women, because it opposes my culture. So I would absolutely do it.
Yeah, that was a nice reach, though. Making a PS5 a practicality is wild mansplaining, but that's what we do. We mansplain. You can't tell a man that his PlayStation isn't practical, all right? That's the last thing a woman should ever do, is try to convince that man his PlayStation is impractical.
Y'all remember that show Survivor?
Let him outgrow it naturally.
Oh, forget that. It's absolutely a cheaper form of entertainment than the vast majority of things that you can lay claim that are entertaining. A man can sit in his fucking in his living room, occupy his time for years on end for what, $500 for that initial purchase?
Listen, that PlayStation keep you out of trouble. It'll keep you from going out, hanging out with the boys. It'll keep you from getting out there, wasting money on them hoes. That PlayStation can be a lifesaver if you apply it accurately.
That's
don't ever doubt the practicality of owning a PlayStation. You just wouldn't know.
Y'all remember that show Survivor, in which they had basically had like a gender show, the men against the women, and the men was basically up ahead, keeping their behinds. The women was arguing amongst themselves, basically destroying the whole entire group. And the only reason that they won, the women won that was because the women found the betas in the male group, got in their head, basically got their acceptance. Like you said, built the allyship, saying if y'all could get rid of them alphas and y'all take charge, we'll go ahead and be on your leadership, and we'll go ahead and win this game. As soon as the betas did that, got rid of so-called quote-unquote alphas out of the group. The women took over and the men lost.
Well, you know what? And this is the problem with that allyship proposition. It's a job for cuttlefish. It's a job for male feminists. That's what allyship is ultimately about. It's weaker men, it's lesser men cooperating to remove the alphas, quote unquote, from the marketplace. And you know, it's really like, well, it's a concept. I'm not saying it's a practicality. It's not like it literally happens on a day-to-day basis, but I'm just saying conceptually, this is what seems like is going on, where like the male feminist, they offer up their male feminist allyship as a part of a sexual strategy.
Isn't that like a sales pitch for the friend zone? Whatever the hell they call that thing again? Like basically,
more or less, being an ally is being a laborer in the friend zone.
It's just a remarketed label. This is ridiculous. I oppose the idea of an alliance anyways. I not that I believe that women are actually capable of causing great harm to our society, or at least, you know, banding together and destroying us, that kind of thing, right? But if I did believe this, right, I would absolutely go after other men for being in an alliance with them. Right now, if I just run into some male feminist, right, like doing his floofy hair kind of bullshit, you know, and snapping his fingers and hanging out with the girls, right, I'm just going to call him a bitch. I'm going to shame him and move on my life.
This is why bullying is a healthy part of like the human.
I knew he was gonna say that. I knew you was gonna say that, man. Damn it.
Bullying works. Listen, it looks uncomfortable and nobody wants to be the kid being bullied, but if you don't want to be bullied, stop being such a homo. Like, this is how bullying works. Men punish weakness in other men because weakness in men as a broad phenomenon gets the rest of the men killed and or hurt. And
well,
so
unfortunately,
you have to punish weakness.
Yeah, we can't.
You're about to say so. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, unfortunately, it's two things can't be right at the same time. I hate to admit that that's right, but at the same time, bullies have a tend to go overboard and they tend to overcorrect the said weakness, and then they have their own bully to deal with.
That's a true thing, and I'm not gonna pretend it's not a thing. But there's not supposed to be an overarching solution for that, because again, all life is struggle, and when you remove struggle from life, you kind of lower the quality of the living organism, and that's what we're dealing with right now. This kind of mouse utopia generation where we've removed struggle and growth and development from a lot of people's just natural process of becoming an adult. And what you're left with is people who've never had to overcome their bully, people who've never had to like stand back up after getting punched in the face or whatever, people who've never got kicked down and had to keep going. You're creating a generation of people who are effectively soft, which, to the point of the guy in the video earlier, why be tough? Because there's no other real option.
Well, this also comes to the fact that you can bully a man. We're going to keep it with the men. You could bully a man, especially a man that see that the thing that you offer him supposed to give him some benefits, some type of reward, if he basically acclimates to the system that you provided for him. But if he does not reap the rewards, or you feel like he basically got God, now you're going to have a Michael Douglas all falls down scenario. And that's what we're kind of seeing.
That's the concept of incentive. And this is how this is probably one of the elements of a functioning society, really. The bullying has to have an incentive structure. You can't just offer bullying with no path to redemption, because that's just cruelty. But if there's a way to kind of grow and develop beyond bullying, and this is what you meant about like things going too far, things being taken to an extreme. Like, there are some people, I mean, not that a bully is a naturally righteous person. He himself, the individual bully himself, is likely an asshole with developmental issues, right? But your job as a human being encountering that is to overcome, to adapt and overcome. And this is why I mean it's a healthy part of the ecosystem, right? But if you remove that, what does that do to the rest of the creatures in the ecosystem? You now weaken them. So I don't think you should go too far in removing the bullying and the excess and the whole equation. But accepting that excess will happen and you should punish that. The premise is that you can't remove too much struggle from the human creature's life, otherwise you diminish the quality of that human.
Well, you absolutely destroy collectivism if you remove bullying. And if we're all running around as a bunch of individuals, now we got problems, right? Because we're not banding together to do anything.
To what Hood's saying, that's the whole reason why I came up. If you if you do away with bullying, I mean, that takes away the hero's journey. That means Uncle Ben's statement, with great power comes great responsibility, has no meaning or no weight anymore. Right. Bullies actually make great men greater. If you think about it.
Especially, we're talking about patriarchy and whatnot. The hero's journey is a great concept to bring up, and we can take it home on that one, because I think I did some a little bit of content before. I was really talking about comic books and the concept of heroism and whatnot, and how progressives seem to not understand proper heroism because they don't understand masculinity. And
think about a Hood.
Well, hold on, let me finish this thought. I would argue that leftist people don't even understand the hero's journey and why that's irrelevant, why that's a necessity for men growing up. It's a developmental stage for men.
Right. Well, think about it with Spider-Man. Spider-Man wouldn't be Spider-Man if it wasn't for that final thing that Uncle Ben said to him before he died. Right. With great power comes great responsibility, because Spider-Man spent his whole childhood, all the way up until and even after he got his powers, being bullied by people. Correct. That's his whole backstory arc into him becoming who he is he was a kid that was bullied and continued to be bullied. Now, imagine when he found out he had that power, if he didn't have that warrior's journey, or, Uncle Ben bringing that reality, with great power comes great responsibility. Imagine all the things that he would go out now that he's got this power and do to these bullies, if he didn't understand that part of who he is came from being bullied. The part of his demeanor and why he's the way he is because of bullying. Bullying actually helped form him and mold him into the man that he is.
I mean, look at the X-Men as a group, right? They're literally the outcast of society. The story of almost every X-Men, they started out, being bullied or something. Mm-hmm. Something happened that forced them outside of mainstream society or whatever. And through that, they said, I have to develop and grow and get stronger and all that. Which, again, my initial premise was that life is struggle. And if you remove too much struggle from life, you lower the quality of life.
Yeah, I think that's the world we live in right there, Hood. Is nobody wants struggle. Everybody wants everything easy access and handed right to them. Today, I want today. Nobody wants to work and struggle for anything.
And
think about this: they don't want to work and struggle for anything alone. So there's no way in hell you're ever going to find two people that'll be willing to work and struggle together for something if they won't do it alone.
It's the nature of man to want things, pleasure is addictive, right? So we want things to be easy and pleasurable. And in that quest to make things easier and more pleasurable, we perhaps forget that struggle is a necessity. And so by making things so easy and so pleasurable, we've taken the necessity of life away, which brings us back to the problem of like nihilism and all that. When things are too good, there is no reason to live effectively.
Right. Think about it. We live in the tech age now. We don't have people able to go through their single individual hero's journey, so to speak, anymore.
But you know what? I think for men, the hero's journey is often a very external thing. Go there, fight the dragon, bring the gold home. The female hero's journey is almost always revolving around motherhood and birthing and those types of those sort of interpersonal things. And to your point, I would argue that we've removed women's reason for the female hero's arc too. I think it's in motherhood that women find their actual heroism, and we removed a lot of the reason to compel women toward motherhood, which would compel them down the path of their own hero's journey.
Well, I think that comes from the inability for most of these quote unquote feminists, their inability to separate feminism from femininity. because those are two entirely different concepts.
Well, it's an intentional conflating. They want feminism to be the femininity of our culture.
But we know that that's not the case.
It's just not possible.
They're literally they're diametrically opposed to each other.
Right.
Definitionally, even.
But again, that's just the way it is, where we're forced to deal in contradiction and hypocrisy. But I think we've
before you get off here, man, there's another video I saw today. Let me see if I can find it. I don't want you to play it. I want you to go back. Well, I'll put the link in the back chat for you. I want you to go back and watch it.
All right, we're not
because it's a good ass fucking debate. It's that Frojack. You know who I'm talking about?
I hear that. I've heard that name. I'm not totally sure.
It's the two white dudes that you had on the other day.
Okay, yeah.
That were debating the black dude.
Yeah, his name's Frojack.
Yeah, well, they're Frojack together. The one kid's name is Forrest, and the other kid's name is Jackson.
Oh, the two white guys are Frojack.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I didn't even know. Put the link in the back for me.
I'm going to, dude, because this debate you'll enjoy and you'll want to cover.
That's why it starts. So pull in, because baby, when the patriarchy starts short circuiting, black women always become the problem. Because have you ever noticed that black women are always the problem? Baby, we always too independent, too picky, too guarded, too much.
Right here.
And before
right
I go
here.
any
Did not say
this
it.
is not the full history, because this narrative didn't just start at gender wars and dating. It's rooted in how the patriarchy responds when it fails. And if we look at history, historically, black women were given roles. Baby, not identity, roles. The man, the Jezebel, Sapphire. These weren't stereotypes by accident. They were tools used to justify exploitation, sexual violence, and this idea that black women don't need protection. And so when slavery ended, or something like that, the patriarchy didn't disappear. It adapted. It promised order through male breadwinners and nuclear families. But the problem was they were denying black men access to work, protection.
So we're right back to the same premise, which is
what I just say.
Have a patriarchy because the white man.
What I just say. What I just say about 20 minutes ago about these black chicks with granny glasses and natural hair / locks.
Well, see, and see, Hood, this is the problem, because where do we go and how do we go anywhere other than where we are when you can't let go of the white man? If you fall back on everything, literally everything, I don't care what it is, if your response mechanism for everything that you're questioning about it always falls back on the white man, then where do we go from that?
I don't know, but don't you feel powerful though?
I don't know. I don't know.
What's wrong with you? What's wrong with y'all? You niggas are crazy.
Snowman is off white.
I mean, I'm just saying, Hood, if you think about it, every time we have any of these discussions, even on panels, no matter what it is, I don't care if it's black people in Africa, anywhere on the fucking planet, anytime anybody's ever, the black people have ever had, anytime black people have to take accountability, it always falls back on white people, on white supremacy. Always,
you just reminded me. That was really my jumping off point when I was having that conversation with Angry Man and them the other day. That's basically when I exited the conversation, when I felt the gravitational pull of slavery shifting the conversation away from patriarchy. So once they started talking about racism and white supremacy, I kind of left and I got back on my own show. And I forgot I was going to bring this clip back up. We're going to review a little bit more of this before we get up out of here. What were you about to say?
No, I was just going to say, I mean, if that's where we're at on everything, I mean, how can we even move further? How can you as a group of people move past it if that's if all the weight on everything that you have all lies on that one thing, white man.
I can actually argue a little bit for this, right? So the claim isn't exactly ungrounded. If you're looking at, like, say, African culture.
No, it isn't. No, Josh, it isn't like any white man sitting,
bro.
Yeah, it isn't like white people aren't sitting and saying that black people didn't get a bad shake. But look, the bottom line is there's a lot of people in this country that got a bad shake. and somehow seem to manage to
No,
get
no.
ahead in life, except for
So
one group of people.
It's not the claim. It's the claim of arguing that, okay, our cultural, right? Like if I'm looking at it from a black perspective, let's just hypothetically say I'm black.
Well,
for a
if
moment,
you
right?
can't eat,
And
well,
I'm
look,
arguing
even
for my
no, Josh.
culture.
One at a time, Snowman. Let him make the point. Then you come back.
Well, but even
I can't
cultural,
even hear the point.
if you're gonna argue black first and not even if everything's got to be black first, you can't even see yourself as American.
That's the point. There's a conflation between the two. If I'm making the argument that my culture from 200-300 years ago, well, most African cultures were actually, what do they call it? Matrilineal, which is basically the family line passes through the female, which is the same thing it is within. Yeah, within the same thing within the Jewish culture, at least up to about 200 years ago, right? This stuff actually existed, right? So the black community would have to decide, do I want to maintain African roots or do I want to become American or say assimilate? You just have to pick the system that you want. They're
by and
skipping
large
past that
were
premise.
American up until the civil rights and era and all this Afrocentrism started getting injected into the consciousness of Black America. We were basically competing as an American subgroup. Like obviously, white America was incredibly like dominant in terms of population size or whatever, but the best parts of Black America were relatively indistinguishable from white America. Is what I'm trying to say.
Sure. But that's like how the claim is there, but there's so much nuance in there. Nobody's going to openly state that their starting premise is their goal. They won't tell you that, oh, we want to hold on to this part of the culture, but then we also want to assimilate to this part of the, like you call it American culture, right? Whatever.
The fact that you got to go out of your way and just separate yourself with the term Black American, that right there says that you aren't the same as the rest of us, because the rest of us are American.
A little bit. It is a kind of de facto separation. Let me finish some more of this clip before we get up out of here.
First of all, wait, hold on. First of all, here's the number one thing, right? The number one thing is this. You don't even know the fucking definition of patriarchy. You don't even know the definition of it.
So define patriarchy and tell me one that's better or worse than the white man.
Hold on. Your definition of patriarchy is actually the feminist definition of patriarchy. Absolutely. Don't tell them that, the Ranger Man.
Oh, I'm saying the feminists have been overplaying this idea of abuse and slavery. You brought that very statement up, and I charge you with quoting feminism.
But that's what you believe it is?
No, I'm saying it's more like a benevolent control. The same way.
What does that look like to you?
Just like when Robbie got up here a minute ago and said that she's not in charge of shit. And I said, your husband's a good man who loves you, right? Most of it was based on that. A good man who loves you, who wants to provide.
Are all men benevolent?
The majority of men are way more benevolent than women, for one. And the majority
That's not what I asked you. That's not what I asked you.
Are all men benevolent is the kind of it's a very useful distraction tactic, because why do all men being benevolent?
That's like asking that's like asking are all women nurturing?
Right? Are all women faithful?
You could have just said you should have just said yes. The vast majority of men on planet Earth are benevolent to their own families and tribes, or however they align themselves within groups. Quite literally,
I would agree with that. By the way, men are a lot closer. Yeah, what's up?
Yo, all right. So, Snowman, man, I can hear the frustration in your voice.
You understand the question I'm asking?
I absolutely do. But, well, there's no but. You're not the black people that you want to ask this question of are not on this panel.
Right. I get that.
So I want to break it down into two things. One, Thomas Sowell, right? You got to go back and take ownership of the fact that white people didn't listen to Thomas Sowell. You gave, if we're playing teams, right? I don't like to play teams, but if we are, white people gave low-class blacks a hold of the reins.
Yes, I agree.
So when you're saying, how do we move past it? The people you're really talking to can't move past it. They don't have the capability. They don't have the capability. It is up to you to treat them equally.
Nah, I'm done doing that shit.
No. I when I say equally, I mean equally. I don't mean. What I mean is the race charge is dead.
Right. I got you. I follow.
So
right.
a person who's a POS is a POS. Doesn't matter if you're black.
Right.
And the charge of, well, that's racist. Well, if you can only interact with me, right, on the basis of race, then maybe you're still a slave, and maybe you like being in that position. Have a nice day.
Right, because it's not racist to understand pattern recognition at all whatsoever.
It is.
Facts.
If a black person can only see an interaction with a white person that doesn't end up positive for the black person as racism, then that is who they are. They are a slave with slave mentality. If they can't compete as an equal and lose, and it not be racism, then they're not actually equal.
Right.
And you just have to wash your hands of it. So that's all I have to say.
Makes perfect sense to me.
That is not
Hold on, everybody.
what I asked you. I'm gonna ask you again.
I got you, AM. We're real quick. I just want to point out what everybody. I know we all know this, but I feel like we got to encapsulate this moment in time because we just have to go over it with a highlighter because AM asked him a direct question specifically about men, and he had to bring women into it some sort of way. Some sort of way.
Didn't I say that earlier?
Some sort of he worked women in there where there were no women.
Question was about women.
These dudes sound sassy. They sound sassy.
Hey, you're talking about the men, right? If you're talking about the men,
who are men to be benevolent to, bro? Who is it men are supposed to be benevolent to, bro?
I literally said in the statement, are all men benevolent? That statement is a comparison amongst men. It's not a comparison amongst men or women. And you just said, who are they being benevolent to? So by your own assertion, I wasn't including women.
So because all men aren't perfect, we should break the order of men.
No.
Well, here you go. Hush the fuck up with this benevolent shit.
Here's the thing. You said benevolent.
No one else did.
Hold on. Now I said benevolent.
Hold on. All men benevolent. No, we know all men are not benevolent because power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Yes or no?
I agree with that statement.
Okay. So if you have a...
This is the value of doing the playback when you realize, oh man, they was just talking a bunch of bull. He totally just like he misquoted his himself at that point. You were the one who asked the question, are all men benevolent? You introduced the whole concept, not me.
Law, or you have a structure where men have total control over their women, the end result is going to be what?
Actually, we had that, and men built the world.
We are having trouble answering it directly.
No, men having control built the fucking world.
That has nothing to do with the women.
That has everything to do with the women.
Why do you keep including the women?
Led to men building the world.
We're talking about patriarchy. Why do you keep talking about the women?
Because patriarchy literally is controlling ownership of the women.
No, it's not. No, it's not. That's not what patriarchy. Hold on for a second. Patriarchy is not about controlling women. That is a feminist talking point.
It's a huge part of it.
It's not. You can Google it.
Bro.
If you don't know who your children belong to, you're not going to work as hard to feed them. That's kind of one of the reasons why women's chastity and all that, women's virginity became an important thing, because men want to know who they're working for, who they're sacrificing and dying for.
Hey, I know this much, Hood. The couple of chicks that I did date back in the day that had kids for the short period of time, I didn't give a shit if them little crumb snatchers ate. They had a daddy. If they need to eat, call their daddy. It ain't my job to feed them.
I'm not going to tell any stories, but you're a horrible person. You need to grow. You need to grow and mature. You're supposed to love that kid, man.
Don't you ever change, Angry Snowman. Don't you ever change. You be as toxic as I am.
Shame on you for not loving that little kid.
You can literally
I mean,
Man, fuck them kids.
I never said that I wouldn't be the little dude's, friend, someone to look up to, but it ain't my job to feed you, clothe you, put a roof over your head. That's your mom and dad's job, not mine.
Banging his mom doesn't make you his friend.
No, not at all.
The actual definition of patriarchy is simply that a man passes down his property and his name to his son. The lineage of
how do you do that without women,
humans
nigga?
Is through the men. That is literally.
How do you have a lineage and a son without women? And you're gonna tell me patriarchy has nothing to do with controlling women? And this is why we keep clashing up here on this panel, because you niggas are trying to convince me that there is a kinder, gentler patriarchy out there that's radically different from the white man's. And I'm like, technically, I don't know, maybe the Japanese can weigh in on this somewhere.
Hey.
But I think the white man has pretty much the softest, most amenable patriarchy out there.
No, I disagree. I think our patriarchy it's obviously the best form of patriarchy, because you see that civilization didn't prosper under any other form of patriarchy until the white man stepped up.
But again, it's not the most extreme, is my point. And so being a least extreme,
it really isn't
a relatively moderate form of patriarchy, and being the most globally dominant, economically successful, culturally expansive, there's a lot to go along with that. And so,
I mean, if you think about
if
you think about it, Hood, like what you're saying, like the white man's patriarchy is pretty freaking benevolent. Any other nation in the world, if they would have ended quote unquote slavery in the country, do you think they would have let them slaves go free, or do you think they would have ended their lives?
Not only that too. Plus, look at what Ms. Cantrell says. Does patriarchy generally bind men or women more, or same? At any point in time in any patriarchy, way more men are going to be in jail and on death row and in horrible situations. There's going to be way more homeless men. There's going to be way more shelters for women. It binds them both, but it punishes men way harder. Like, men always hold the harshest punishments for men.
Because we're supposed to be the so-called the domineering force on this planet, but we have subjugated and cut our balls off to go ahead and let women be equal.
Really the definition of patriarchy. So when you look at patriarchy is about us. If we marry a woman, the woman takes our last name. Our firstborn son receives our legacy and whatever they inherit. That's literally what patriarchy is. It is the lineage recorded through the men. That's what patriarchy is. When you start talking about patriarchy controlling women, that's the feminist definition of patriarchy. So when you're sitting here trying to argue about, well, if you take away the control, you're dismantling patriarchy. That ain't even a goddamn definition of patriarchy.
Can I give it to him? Can I give him the actual definition?
Yeah, you can, but let me just say this real quick.
Go ahead.
If men were a damn creature, that, matter of fact, let me put it this way. If you took a bunch of men and you put them on an island and there was no women there, they would still build shit. It ain't got nothing to do with the damn women, bro. That has nothing to do with the women.
A men on an island building shit is not a patriarchy. Like, those boys from Lord of the Flies were never building patriarchy.
Nope.
There's no patriarchy without women, because, like he said, patriarchy is about lineage and progeny. You don't get that without women, and you don't know you don't know who belongs to who if you don't have some level of control over the women.
Right. Hey, you remember that movie Maze Runner, right? You ever watch that Maze Runner?
It's like a whole series, right?
Yeah, it was a trilogy, but if you recall, in the very first Maze Runner, it was nothing but dudes, young boys in there. And did they build a little bit of a governing system and have like things that they built to, keep order? Yes, absolutely. But it wasn't until the girl showed up that they decided that they had enough of their little prison that they were in, and that they were going to try and break free. Right.
Now we got to build. Now that there's the girl here,
now we got to
build the patriarchy.
Right.
That's how it works. You can't even get to patriarchy without women. This is why monks aren't considered patriarchy. Like, a bunch of monks alone in a monastery, Nobody would consider that a patriarchy. That is a fraternity. That's a brotherhood. And that's really how it works. A bunch of men without women in the community is a brotherhood at best, right? And it's a little gay. And then once you have women around, we can have a patriarchy. You know what? This is also how the West was won, right? We didn't win the West because we killed every Indian in sight, even though we tried. We won the West because we brought women who brought children. And then once we have women and children around, now you got to protect the women. You got to feed the women every day. Because as men, we can survive on a piece of what were they eating back then? Salt beef or whatever. Like men were eating
some hardtack and some beef jerky.
Yeah, we can survive on hardtack
and jerk beef.
Can't treat women like that. They're gonna break. And so you have to put them in houses. You have to supply them with things every day. You had to start building a whole economy to keep the women alive. And that's how you really conquered the West. We brought women out. We expanded the patriarchy to the West. And now there's gays running all over California because the shit done went too far. You said
we tried to warn them that it would go out of spin out of control like this, but they didn't listen.
Yeah.
I mean, there were a lot of people that tried to warn that this is what was going to happen.
Yeah, nobody likes to listen until it's too late. That's how it is, man. What are you gonna do? You know that's your son.
I'm gonna make it even.
No. How do you know that's your son on that island?
I'm gonna make.
Oh, that's a good caveat right there.
I don't think they ever approached that answer, by the way.
Nope, they didn't.
I'm gonna make it more substantial.
Conservative. Let wrestler go.
I'm gonna make even more substantial, G, right? Because we're talking about the patriarchy in terms of how it is for white men. I'm gonna go over to Africa. Key aspects of patriarchy in Africa: social and family structure. Says the power is traditionally vested by the male elders who act as the head of households, custodians of culture, lineage, and of course the tracing back to the father's side of the roots. They have a whole economical side of it. They got a whole freaking gender roles. They got a whole freaking cultural structure and reinforcement and what the impact of that system actually is. Keep in mind, you've been talking so much about what it means to be patriarchal in white society, even in black society, in Africa, you know, because we're black men that happen to be up here. It follows the same fucking structure.
These guys are so slow.
They just don't want no responsibility. They don't want no power. These are the type of men that go ahead and give up their whole top birthright off a piece of snatch that they could.
This is where it all came together for me in this conversation, because my entire point, my entire criticism was you keep defining this thing as white patriarchy as if white patriarchy is a unique thing unto itself. And then even along those terms, if you want to play that game, you keep making all these accusations that fit better on Arab patriarchy. Like you're describing that desert shit. You're talking about Bedouins and shit. And so now that we brought it over to Africa, and my whole position is patriarchy is patriarchy. There isn't a lot of real difference, white, black, or whatever. There's just extremes maybe. But now you want to go to Africa. Well, African patriarchy is just like white patriarchy, which is my whole point. There's not a lot of wiggle room.
Nothing.
The wrestler. This is where it gets even worse. This is why.
Wait, are you telling me the basic precepts of patriarchy are not colored? They're not bound, no color scheme.
They're not.
No,
which is my point, right? Stop arguing as if the white man has some special, unique thing.
You're the one that told you about the white man.
You the one that brought it up.
Y'all bring it up. Y'all hold it. Hear me out. Y'all bring it up. And this is another thing you have to be in mind when you're arguing with a bunch of black folk on a panel. A lot of people have a hard time following the bouncing ball. Like I know we've been arguing for at this point in the panel, the show has been on for like 3 hours or whatever. I remember the shit you said to me 2 hours ago. I remember the order and the sequence of the arguments that were raised. And so now that it's 2 hours plus later, I remember you saying this shit. I remember my entire point. And you guys seem to forget your point. And now you're just arguing. You're right fighting, which is basically you're fighting to be right, regardless of what you've actually said previously. special, unique thing.
You're the one that told about the white man.
You the one that brought that up.
Y'all bring it up. Y'all bring it up as if y'all hold on. Hear me out. Y'all bring it up as if he did something wrong. Y'all bring it up as if he did something wrong.
You did that. You literally did that.
You keep acting as if you need to create this black patriarchy, but you just read from the African roots of African patriarchy.
Which means that patriarchy is
exactly the same as the white shit.
The difference between white and black in the fucking patriarchy.
You just read that it's actually it's very much the same. So how you want a whole uniquely black thing when it's all the same shit? And I'm saying don't reinvent the wheel.
Conservative. You're taking the white.
Hold up real quick and shout out to my man, what was that? We Geek Boys with the 5-ball. African patriarchy is a one-sided UFC match.
Hulk! Smash! Smash you! You make Hulk angry. You not like Hulk angry. Hulk no like fighting girls.
Shout out to my man We Geek with the 5-ball. We're gonna wrap this up in a few more minutes. I just had to get through a little bit more of this conversation because looking back at it, it really was spectacular.
Woman's victimized position within white man's patriarchy, and you're trying to apply it to black men.
I'm saying she wasn't victimized.
Okay, but that's the thing.
Believing that white woman's lies.
Right, but I'm not saying that. But that's the feminism. This is the feminism
the
that I'm talking.
Used to own
Hold on, wait. I'm not arguing. I'm not yelling. I'm not arguing. Wait. I'm not arguing. I'm not yelling. What I'm saying is that men of today, within these arguments, these DMP conversations, these relationship conversations, everything that's going on within this new form of pseudo manospherisms, right? What's happening today is this. Why I asked you earlier.
Whoa.
How is victim? These DMP conversations, these relationship conversations, everything that's going on within this new form of pseudo manospherisms.
This is why you have to go back and watch the game tape. I didn't even realize pseudo was a thing. Is pseudo like velvet?
Similar. Is in a class.
Wow, you got that crushed pseudo.
Right. What's happening today is this. Why I asked you earlier.
Hey, that pseudo is more like epitome.
What's epitome, guy? You almost had me for a minute.
You
like, what is
remember epitome? Epitome. You know, the one that Izzy swore up and down was a word in the dictionary. Epitome.
Epitome sounds like an over-the-counter foot spray.
Either that or like an Alka-Seltzer or some shit. It sounds like an antacid.
It sounds like
what's epitome supposed to be? Epitome? What do you call say epitome and call it epitome?
Yeah, bro. When he said it just now, I almost fell into it. Like, what the hell's epitome? Then I just remembered, oh shit.
How is victimhood a part of masculinity? Because it's not. Because the feminism argument that a lot of men are using today when it comes to what societal expectations from women and from government, you're taking the victimized position and you want to be treated specially because of what someone else either did or got. This is why I said this to you earlier. I just want you to know that.
Now, I it would have probably blew up the conversation if I'd have done this, so it's probably better I didn't. But do you think slaves were men? And I'm asking you guys on the panel. I'm going.
I'm gonna tell you this right now. My opinion: I think slaves were more men than the men today are.
But aren't slaves by definition victims?
So are men by definition.
Because he's arguing that men, if somehow being victimized or victimization is completely antithetical to any definition or description of manhood, which I argue that, masculinity itself is maybe, running from victimization. It's, the struggle against victimization, but it's not totally devoid. Like, to be a man, you're going to be a victim of something at some point, huh?
Yeah, you have to be by definition. So, and I can't speak to all other cultures, but within our culture, Western culture, we don't have any respect for you unless you've been through some shit. That's why we don't really like kids, right? Why with some 16 or 17-year-old
heard it
comes up and says,
described like
"Oh,
that.
I have an opinion." Nobody cares until you've been beat up because of that opinion. Now, then,
Right. He's kind of got a point, man.
Nah, he was cooking with that. I've never heard it framed exactly like that. This is why we don't like kids, because they haven't been through anything. But that's pretty much the most accurate description I could say. That actually does kind of track.
Just is what it is. I mean, that's in our culture, to be a man, you have to be brutalized.
A little bit.
Whether it's by society, whether it's by the system, it just got to be something.
And to what Josh is saying, man, that's why black men, in my opinion, are always going to finish last, because they're not willing to do the things that white men are willing to do to succeed.
And
no matter how brutal or savage it has to be.
Not only that, but you kind of have to embrace the suffering. I remember years ago,
think about.
Let me just tell this real quick story. Let me just say this real quick. I found a little business card like on the ground somewhere. I picked it up, and it was like face up. That's what made me look down and pick it up, because it said something about suffering. So I looked closer and I read it, and it said, I forget some doctor or whatever, but it said, do what hurts the most and the suffering will stop. And at that time, that was a little bit profound to me, because what I took from that was that in order to end the pain, you have to kind of embrace the pain, which means like take on the burden. Embrace the suck is what military guys say, right? You have to embrace the burden, and burdens aren't meant to be pleasurable and enjoyable. The outside, the other end of it, the achievement is meant to be enjoyable. And so I always kind of remember that you have to do what hurts in order to stop the suffering. But sorry, Snowman, you wanted to say something.
No, I was just going to say, don't you find it interesting that when it comes to the black community, that they're willing to do some of the most vile, atrocious, and horrible things to people for quick fixes, quick come-ups, quick bags, but they're not willing to go out and step up and do them same horrible and vile things to create institutions,
right?
And to build governments and all that shit. It's a wild psychology. You'll literally do it for quick little small, dopamine hits. You're willing to do whatever, all the things that say the white man is guilty of doing. You'll do it for quick little fixes, but you ain't willing to take that length to actually, conquer the world.
And that's kind of the thing with the so-called white man, in the sense of he might be ruthless in his destruction, but he's also ruthless in his construction as well. Because you have to be a little bit ruthless even to build. And I don't think, like, as far as embracing the suck and embracing responsibility, and we're talking about black folk or whatever, that's kind of my criticism, is you kind of have to embrace that stuff and then be willing to do the hard things that get you to where you need to be. And this is why leadership is important, because not everybody's built for that. Not everybody's supposed to know what's in the sausage, but the sausage got to get made,
Yeah, I seen that video how sausages was made, and I was like, damn.
I'm playing off an old saying about, like, between laws and sausages, nobody's supposed to know exactly how it works, or how it gets made. But that's kind of the thing, though. Like, you kind of have to embrace a level of ruthlessness, even in your building. Like, you can destroy ruthlessly, but you should also build just as ruthlessly. And I think that's where it all falls off the rail, because honestly, destruction is easy. Being ruthless in your destruction doesn't take that much creativity. Being is why great men have statues.
Right. The problem with the black community is they're real good at tearing down, but once you tear that shit down, they never build it back up into something different, something better. And then what they do is they get mad when outside forces come in and do what they should have done and build it up and make it better. And then somehow they're priced out of something. They're mad because they want white people there, or the white business there, or whatever, they want the tax revenue so they can have all the benefits of it, but they don't want to have to pay the financial burden that comes right along with that of actually being a productive member of society.
Right. And this is what I realized too. People talk about reparations and whatnot. And I realized, if you live by all these fatherisms that Ms. Cantrell's talking about, and we're talking about up here on the panel, you would need less rescue because you would become rescued independently. Like you would save yourself. You wouldn't need to be saved anymore. And so it's just, you know, these are such obvious things. And I guess because we are sort of masculine centered mentally and we have like father figures, we have decent men that maybe we can model ourselves after, a lot of these things may become a lot more easily to us just in conversation. Whereas when you listen to, you know, the black panel, like I was up there talking to Angry Man and them guys, there's such a habit of leaning into the white man argument that you can never really get off the crutch. The white man argument is effectively a crutch at this point. It is the greatest coke there ever was.
Well, look, dude, the at the end of the day, when it comes to the discussion of, you know, black men being equal to white men or whatever, you're never going to be equal if you don't see yourself as equal.
Well,
ever. If you're always seeing yourself as being held back or stifled or having to live under the rule of the white man, then you're never going to be equal ever.
Angry Snowman, I'm gonna end this conversation right there. I'm gonna drop everybody from the panel because I want to monologue off that last point you just made. But shout out to you guys. Thank you, Josh, Mr. O, Freeman's Journal, Angry Snowman. Appreciate you guys coming up here. But let me just kind of freestyle off that point you just made about being equal to the white man. Equality doesn't come from programs. Equality will never come from handouts. There is no amount of reparations the white man can give you that will make you equal. Equality is not the way of equality is unnatural. It just is. There is no natural equality. And to the extent that you want something like what you call equality with the white man, equality can only come from achievement. There's no other way around that. There's no other way to square that circle. You know, like earlier when I talked about unhappy families being all unique in their misery, but happy families having very similar things in common. There are only a couple of ways to get it right. And ultimately, you either get it right or you don't. And if you want equality, you have to achieve. And here's the thing. After you achieve, you will start to realize that you are actually better than some other people who have not achieved. Achievement is what you want, not equality. By chasing achievement, you will land somewhere in a land that approximate what you were thinking of as equality. But really what you're chasing is achievement. That being said, I thank you all greatly for coming out tonight and watching the show. We went into a little bit of an overtime, but I felt like it was a great conversation. I wanted to extend this a little bit. And I thank you all for coming out. We've been talking about Black people and patriarchy and unlearning misogyny. And I'm going to close it out right here. These last two drops feel extra ironic considering all that we've talked about today. But thank you all for watching. I will catch you guys on the next one.
Aspiring to be patriarchs like what white men have, that isn't freedom. That isn't going to help anybody. It's certainly not going to help Black people.
It's done. It's done. It's done. It's done. It's done. It's done.
How dare you say that we are not interested